never settle, no settlements. Our sentiments, no touch of pedals, no puppet strings, puppeteers. Violence of violence, orchestrated strategy to harmonize the sirens. Victory inevitable, lions and lioness, discipline impeccable. We've trained with samurais. Sensei Fred Ho, Mafere Funjango. Our ancestors bless ya. Gawa Gawa Sile. Chango Chango, Quilombos, Acapulco Town, Moortown, Charlestown, Scazo, Veracruz, Loiza, Mafere Funjango, Ogun Ogun. Strike down. Gullah Geechee, stay Gullah Geechee. My veins from down south, global south, Zapatista. Yes, we all Maroons. Watch yourself now. We connecting continents. Fuck your governments. Revolutionary matriarchs. You can feel it in the air, never scared. Maroons, we prepared. So be aware, stay prepared. Kill your inner fears. Fight with us, win with us. Yes, we here. Victory is certain. We've already won. You can feel it in the air, never scared. Maroons, we prepared. So be aware, stay prepared. Kill your inner fears. Fight with us, win with us. Yes, we here. Victory is certain. Winning is to be won. Winning is to be won. Winning is to be won. Work now. Skilled with art equal to a politic matters. Not what you think skin is dark matters. Top black matters. Crop a photograph. Eternal revolutionary struggle. Pick the graph through the math. 1492. That's 529 times at very least. We fight within the belly of the beast. No, we never running. Revolutionary drumming. Steady coming. Revolution she be coming. Steady coming. You can feel it in the air. Never scared. Maroons we prepared. So be aware. Stay prepared, kill your inner fears. Fight with us, win with us. Yes, we here, victory is certain. We already won, you can feel it in the air. Never share, Maroons, we prepared. So be aware, stay prepared, kill your inner fears. Fight with us, win with us. Yes, we here, victory is certain. Winning is to be won.
Peace, everyone. This is Brother Shep. I want to welcome everybody to this event this evening, which is a continuation of our free Russell Maroon Schultz week. And we're going to get right into the program. And what we want to do is, first, I just want to make a quick announcement. Sister Naima will be joining us after the film. She's one of our Panther Cubs. She had a class at 7. There was a little mix-up with the time, because we actually have an organizer meeting going on at 8 o'clock. So, but we have another Cub who's filling in. It's actually niece of Russell Maroon Schultz. Sister Noah Harmony is here. So it's like Panthers do, she's going to be filling in for the first part of this event. And we're going to get started right now. So first of all, I'm Brother Shep. Some people know me as Siddiqui Olugbala, slave name Shepherd McDaniel. You might see that. I'm a veteran of the original Black Panther Party here in New York, working out of Harlem and the Bronx. And we continue that work. We got to bring our freedom fighters home. And so that's just part of that whole campaign for this year. 2021 is the year to bring them all home. It's time for them to come home. So I'm going to start off with introducing Sister Noah Harmony. Noah, you got it.
Okay, thank you, Baba Shep, for inviting me for having me. It's 7:08 p.m. here on the East Coast. I'm calling in from Washington, D.C., and I'm so happy to be a part of this night, and also, to support my uncle, Russell Maroon Schultz, who is a 77-year-old prisoner, political prisoner. There's so much extensive information about him, and if you check out our link tree, you can find out more information about Maroon. However, pardon me. Okay. You can check out more information about Maroon today. He's dying of stage 4 cancer, and I'm here powered by the Shows Unity for Maroon. And we ask for compassion and mercy in his release for this immediate matter, for his complete release during his lifetime. And that is our goal, and that is our fight. And this is how it is that we're moving onward. So this is just some information. Recently, we just did a Maroon Day of Service, which was Sunday, April 25th. It was an all-day affair. It was a beautiful affair, and there will be more opportunities to be invited to the Maroon Garden and to partner with different stakeholders and businesses in Philadelphia and community members and all of those great things. So again, thank you all for joining me, and Baba Shep of being your host tonight. I just got called in onto this job, so just be patient with me, and thanks a lot, Baba Shep.
Okay, we're gonna bring on Brother Jalil Montakim, one of our comrades who is free, and we are happy that he's back on the streets again, partially anyway. Can't move around too much, but at least we got him to the point where we can actually see and speak to him. So, Brother Jalil, you got the floor.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah, wa barakatuh, Ramadan Kareem to all the Muslims. I am grateful to have this opportunity to speak in behalf of my comrade, Brother Maroon. As you well know, the brother is a soldier from way back. He's been a soldier for decades now. You know, all the things that he's gone through from the time he was in solitary confinement, years and decades in solitary confinement, his efforts to be released to liberate himself. You know, I'm one who's strong about the issues of liberation, issues of liberating himself from years back, and the times that he was incarcerated or in isolation for decades, and the fight for us to get him out of isolation. You know, one thing that is important for us to understand in regards to the issues of political prisoners in the state of New York, not in the state of New York, but throughout the country, is that this country does not recognize the existence of political prisoners, right? They say that anyone who's convicted of a crime in their court of law is therefore, quote unquote, a criminal. And by virtue of that alone, we are treated as if our goals and objectives is one that in and of itself is criminal. To even look to try to free our political prisoners in itself is criminal. Even to talk about them and identify them as political prisoners in the state's mentality, state's mind, is a criminal act. As you well know, that not long ago they had what's called the Black Extremist program. That if you thought that you was black, right, that you were a criminal. They tried to create that kind of a narrative out there, and so we find ourselves being attacked on all levels from various different forces of the state. And so it is imperative that we join forces in unity and uniformity. It's something I always repeat oftentimes when I have opportunity to speak, that we need to build in unity and uniformity in regards to our organizations or organizations that support political prisoners, whether it be Jericho Movement, which I'm the co-founder, or the Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition, which Sekou Odinga is the founder. We have to continue to seek the means by which we can unify our various organizations and build towards some type of mass movement in regards to the fight for our political prisoners. As some of you may know, many of you do not, on October 22nd to the 24th, the Jericho Movement, along with the Northeast Coalition of Political Prisoners and many other organizations, will be building towards an international tribunal. The international tribunal is bringing the international community to the United States to hear our plight, to hear our struggle, to hear our issues, to hear our fight for the release of our political prisoners, like Maroon, like Sundiata, like Matulu, like Poindexter, and many others across the country, like Voranza, like Kamal, and many others across the country. David Gilbert, as another example, one of our outstanding comrades in the fight for liberation and freedom. And so on October 22nd and 24th, right, the international jurors, we'll be having what's called Tribunal, International Tribunal 2021. And it's imperative everybody across this country, every political supporter of political prisoners, join in the International Tribunal and support that endeavor. because it's going to be historic. We're going to bring the issues of genocide to the international community. And by virtue of our argument and our fight for exposing the conditions of Black people, new African people in this country, right, we're going to also be exposing the existence of political prisoners in our fight for their freedom. This is our goal. This is our mission. This is our mission. As Silas says, we have a duty to fight. Not only do we have a duty to fight, we have a duty to win. And that's our goal and objective. I thank Shepard for our brother Shep for giving the opportunity to give this presentation, to speak in behalf of our political prisoners, speak in behalf of the Northeast Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition and the Jericho Movement, in support of our campaign to fight for the liberation of all of our comrades who are still held down. As you well know, I've only been out about 7 months now, right, from over nearly 50 years in prison. And so I was in prison for organizing. In prison, I was organizing. I'll come back out of prison. I'm still organizing. That's what it's about, right? Our game plan is to win. And the only way you can be in it, the only way you can win it, you got to be in it. And so that's what our goals and objectives are. So with that, I'm going to leave this to Brother Shep to carry on this program. I appreciate you, bro.
Right on, comrade. Okay, I'm gonna move on to introduce our next panelist or guest, my comrade from the Boogie Down Bronx also. Before I do that, I just want to say that he's gonna introduce the film that we're about to see. In 1996, myself and our late comrade, Sister Safia Bakari, we all worked at Deep Dish TV, which before the real internet came up, we used to use satellites to beam our messages across the planet. And so I don't know how to this day that we were able to get Brother Deruba into that prison to interview Russell, but it's a historic event that took place in '96, and we felt that we should definitely show that and then open up this program to direct Q&A to both Jalil and Deruba. I see there's some other former political prisoners here. I see Brother Kazi's here, so he'll be on board. And I know other people are going to be coming in during or after the film. So without further delay, Brother Deruba Ben Wahad. D, you got the floor. I know you're on the other side of the world, but there he is. All right.
Peace. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Loud
We hear you. We hear you.
All right, let me put this camera on.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, cool. So, greetings, everybody. It's good to see you guys. There you go, Shep. How you doing? King Downey. There's Jaleel. How you doing, brother? Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Kareem. It's good to talk to you and communicate with everyone. I want to, salute to Shep, for staying steadfast and consistent and trying to draw more light and information on our PPs and on what's happening right now in terms of the rise of the white supremacist right, its populism, and the weakness of Black leadership at this particular point. I mean, we have hashtag movements on the left, and we have Boule Negroes on the right, and we have leadership by victimhood in the middle. So we're in bad shape in terms of organization and resources that could change this paradigm in our communities. Shep has been consistent with pushing the necessity to take command and control of local law enforcement in New York and in the Northeast with decentralization of police, workshops and forums and mobilizations efforts over the last few years. I've been seeing that a lot, And I just want to say that's good. I mean, that's one of the few brothers that stay consistent on that mass line of decentralization and community control, and the difference between the two, and of course, that struggle is now almost completely encapsulated by the current misleadership class and the victims of police murder. And so we have we have a lot ahead of us. I'm in Africa. I'm in West Africa at the moment, and I shall be back hopefully by the middle of the year. This year is going so fast. We're almost halfway through it, and I will be back in June. And I think that one of the things that um, uh, a lot of you, a lot of the issues you are working around, I know that there's a lot of attention right now placed on the historical legacy of the Black Panther Party, and there's a lot of revisionism and revisionist history of the party. Um, the stories that need to be told, the accounts that should be told, based on events that have sort of been swept under the rug, has not been told yet. And so I've reached out to comrades like Sekou, and 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 we've began to talk about how to deal with that narration. And so there are a number of accounts that's coming out on the BLA, on the consequences of, of of movements that do not have a functional underground to support them. Uh, like the abolitionist movement had the Underground Railroad. Uh, Many of the young people who are on the front lines right now are reinventing failure, not because they intend to, but because they're not in touch with their radical history and their radical traditions and the victories and the defeats that tradition inflicted and suffered. I think it's very important to understand, and I made this clear in a recent visit in Europe, in in Germany and Austria and where else? Someplace else. Anyway, and these were black. Um, uh, these were young black activists who were born in these fascist and former colonial nations, former imperial nations. They were born and raised there, and and the 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 movement against police murder and injustice has motivated them too. And but they're faced with the rise of white supremacy and the corporate state, the garrison state, and it's powerful, and we are in the vice of that right now, and so we're going to take some of the 50,000 pages of COINTEL profiles that I have at my disposal, and we've begun to translate a narrative of the repression of the Black movement, specifically the Black Panther Party, and the BLA, and how the police configured, how they translated COINTELPRO into New New Kill into PRISAC and Chess Rob and all these other um, acronyms they use as an anti-urban guerrilla campaign in the United States for about 15 years. So I'm going to work on getting that out. I just wanted to let everybody know I have some commentaries on that that have been translated into French and German, and So a publication will be coming out sometime in the middle of next month in Europe, uh, talking about some of our analysis of white supremacy, of, 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 of racist violence, and in the United States and abroad. But I just want to end by saying that I appreciate all of you. We have to, as Jaleel said, we have to build to win. And we have to try to bring together this generation into a united front against the garrison state, a united front that can effectively usurp the encapsulated movements that are now uh, in the forefront. I mean, we know how this encapsulation is working. We see it every day. We see it with the victims of racist police murder becoming the moral and ethical leadership and validation for police quote reform. And we see young people taking to the streets with with less than strategic slogans like "hands up, don't shoot," and you know, Black Lives Matter, as if crackers really had to be informed that our lives should matter. And we need their authorization. We need their recognition that our lives matter. And so, I mean, you know, it's very important for us. And there's many vets here that people understand that without a Black liberation movement, without an independent political movement that encompasses oppressed people in the United States and exploited minorities and classes in the United States, led by people of African ancestry, we're not going to have any type of chance of survival in the next 15 to 20 years during this technological revolution. Things are going to be transformed. We're not going to return to a normal, whatever that was before the so-called pandemic. Things are going to be different. We have a lot of opportunities, and we have a lot of chances to do to make some serious inroads and changes. And so I just want to say that let's tell our youth and our children and those who are aspiring right now that they've already won. We've already fought these battles and we've won. Now it's time for us to act like we've won and exercise power, not just mobilize. We have to organize. And I think that's key. I think that's important. And for those of us who have the type of energy and connections to hold these Negroes in finance capital accountable, to finance our efforts, to finance our activities, we have to really get on the case with that and call them out and be there for our people. So I'm going to end with that. And sorry I was so long-winded. I apologize. Peace.
Okay, the Ruben, last thing we need you just to introduce the film. Since you were the one who went up, to the county and interviewed Maroon, just kick it off. Tell us, how it happened, and just introduce it. Just a short one is good.
Well, I don't, man, you remember that better than I do.
I didn't go though.
Man, listen,
I was supposed to have went. I said, nah, the Ruben's here. You should go.
I mean, I got into, in New York, I couldn't get in nowhere, and for years, I couldn't get into none of the brothers until Noah, may Allah be pleased with him, until he was about to pass. And I managed to see Noah about a week or so before he transitioned. And that was a very devastating experience for me. I mean, it was, to this day, I think of it. And anyway, so I don't really, I got into Simo Mia too. And I don't know how that happened. But I really can't remember how I got in to see Russell, but I did, and I guess you all see the film now. When we look at it in retrospect, especially given where Mumia is at himself, and right now the conditions of Imam Jamil Alameen, and the other prisoners. I mean, it's
We gonna bring them home, brother. We gonna bring them home.
it's kind of frustrating. But anyway, yeah. So let's show the film.
All right.
Let's show the interview.
All right, brother Spirit Child, you back on the controls. Let's get to the film. When this is done, make sure you put your questions in the chat for our veterans so they can answer them questions. They all are, again, former prisoners of war here in this confines of America.
This ain't working? Okay. I can go then. Yes, sir. So, I spoke to my daughter and son earlier, right? Yeah, they tried to fake me out, about you, and as far as the surprise, that you and these other people would be coming up here. But I had to sign all the releases, yesterday, so therefore I seen everything on there. And once I seen the interview or whatever the case is, I was say yes. This is all right.
So, we addressed that he came to court today.
Right.
Did he ever tell you the story?
No, he's told me through other people, but never directly.
He said he came to court that they wouldn't let him in.
Right.
He had an exact story.
Right.
And they said he got a weapon.
Right.
So he bragged about it.
Well, you know how it was then. Things fired up. You know how it was. Yeah. And I'm glad. It's about time. But nevertheless, it's a crisis situation though. But I hopefully, we can rise to the occasion. Hopefully.
Do you get any phone calls back then?
This is the control unit that I'm in, right? So everything that go along with it, I'm cut off completely. In fact, this little get up I'm in now, this is like, I usually got the monkey suit on. I look like one of them clowns coming out of Dachau or Treblinka someplace, with the stripes and all that. I haven't seen anything like this since I come in here. I've been here over a year and a half. I get nothing, period. I'm in the control unit. This is Pennsylvania's Maryland. This is like the new joint in Colorado. So actually it's two joints for real. It's one joint that's a regular penitentiary that's out there, but everything behind these walls, the building that Mumia is in, which is the death row building, and the building I'm in, they're all identical, but they're cut off, cut and run. I'm in the control unit, cut and run, and I'm being told that I will never leave here, which is crap. I don't pay no attention to, of course. I've been told worse. I ain't worried about it. But right now, no. Yes. Actually, Actually, this is the premier control unit for the whole state.
And what's the population?
They altogether they have 386 beds. Although they're double capacity, they're not doubled at the present time.
No. I got interference.
You get interference? Is that me?
I'm getting interference.
Yeah.
Testing.
Should I move it? Should I move this?
No. Just keep going. I'll figure it out too.
Testing. You getting interference?
Folks should know the poor sound is due to that barrier that's in the prison, in the room that they were in. We did the best we could.
Test.
Testing 1, 2. Is that okay? Should I hold it?
Yeah, just hold it.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Don't move it around, just leave it down.
Just leave it down?
Yeah.
So what's your days look like? How much time you have out yourself?
An hour a day.
23 hour lot.
23 hours, 3 showers a week, 5 hours of outdoor recreation, and that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
You have access to the law library?
We have access to the law library, but as you know, it's not.
They bring it to you. You got to put down.
No, we can go to the law library. It's right on the unit itself. The unit is completely self-contained. Everything that's done is done on the unit. The meals are brought in. They're preparing. They're brought in. Everything else is done right on the unit.
Your meals are served in the cell?
They're served right in the cell.
So you don't come out even eat?
I don't come out for anything except 1 hour, 5 days a week to exercise.
And what's that? That's a dog cage or something?
That's a dog cage, single capacity dog cage, 12-foot fences, concertina wire, walls around the entire unit itself.
So the recreation is out of sight of each other too, right? You can just see each other through the cage.
You can see 7 men, 6 other men, including yourself, that's within the cages. However, the unit, although it has 96 individual cells, you can only see 24 men because it's broke up into 4 24 units. So you never see anybody but 24 people. And then they have 4 buildings like that. Each one of them are similarly broke up into 4 different units. Altogether it's 386, of these maxi cells. But out of 386 men, you will probably never see but 24 men that's in on your unit, in addition to the officers as well as maybe 2 workers, that may come from another unit. That's about it. I've been here a little over a year and a half. And within that time, I've seen Brother Mumia twice. And I've been able to holler at him and say, how you doing? Once within that time. And at one time, we were in the same identical building for 6 months.
Yeah, he was telling me.
And that was...
You could be in the same building, won't even know somebody's there.
Yeah. So that's the whole idea about, how they're making these new control units. It's to, completely cut you off as much as possible from all of the, outside stimuli that they can. Also within this unit, we're not allowed to have access to our own reading material. We're not allowed, we have to read the...
You're not permitted books?
No, we're permitted access to books within their library. They provide a library, which is everything from the boy who invented popcorn or bubble gum, or up to some other crap, some system crap that they want you to read.
Oh, wait. You can't order books from the publisher or...
No, you're not. You can order what you want, but when it comes, it goes into your property to be given to you when you're released. And in the case of a person like me, I've been told over and over again in writing that I will never, any VER, be released from this unit. And of course, as you know...
So you're saying all the books that you're sent and put in your property and you never get to read them?
No, you're never allowed the books except from approval from their board, which is the Program Review Committee.
Okay,
This
so
committee-
like say for instance your book was sent to you
Right.
from the publisher. It goes to the
Right.
Program Review Committee.
It goes to Program
Let's
Review
assume that they okay it.
Right.
Then you can read it.
Then you can read it.
Okay, so you can have it in yourself.
You would have it in your cell in exchange for
Another book.
another book.
So you permitted how many books in your cell? 5?
No, what you're permitted the necessary legal books for cases that you're preparing, as well as any one religious book. Outside of that, your leisure reading material, something that's sent from somebody on any given topic, you're only allowed it if the Program Review Committee approves it. So as it stands right now, and I've been here a year and a half, and I've been given access to being able to exchange 2 books on a one-for-one basis. And this is because I haven't had any type of rule infraction since 1989. So you can imagine what I would have to do, to work myself into, some more access to, some more sensory input.
Can you
I think the problem is coming from the
handcuffs?
the rattling of that. If it doesn't rattle too much, I think we get better reception.
I'll try, but
Can you sit down?
Well, they didn't give him a chair.
Here's a chair.
yeah, I could sit, but I'm more comfortable standing unless you would prefer me to sit.
It's more relaxing when you sit, don't you think?
I'm more relaxed standing. I've been running so long, man. This is my thing. But if you prefer me, I'll sit.
Yeah, I
The
think.
cameras are all fixed to him standing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because that's who I am, man. I got to move. If I don't move, I'll die. I'll be destroyed.
You're like a shark now, huh?
It's been that way, ain't it?
So therefore, your ability to read different diverse material is restricted at best.
Yes, it has to come through the PRC. I'll give you an example. About 6 months ago, my daughter had me send a dissertation that was by a Kim Holder, which is a graduate student. He got a PhD on this dissertation, and it was on the history of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
And the Program Review Committee reviewed it and refused to let me have access to it. No reason, because they don't have to give a reason, because all of this is discretionary.
Who's on the review committee?
The Program Review Committee, it's 3 people. It's usually the Deputy Warden for Operations, that's the security man, as well as the Deputy Warden for Treatment, that's the program man, as well as some other...
Deputy Warden for Treatment?
Deputy Warden for Treatment, that's the party that's involved.
Is he a doctor or something?
I don't know whether any of them would have any type of doctorate, type of degree.
Treatment implies some type of therapy or something like that.
It would imply that, but from my years in this system here,
It doesn't mean that.
it doesn't mean anything because there's no type of treatment worthwhile no way.
And who else?
And another classification, which would be the guy who's head of the councils for all practical purposes.
Like a senior counselor or something.
More or less.
And they make a determination on what you should read and shouldn't read.
They make a determination on everything that
Is
you
there a
do.
criteria they're supposed to utilize?
There is a criteria, but the criteria is so broad that it gives them wide latitude to determine everything within your life except a limited number of things. And amongst those limited number of things, of course, they have to provide for your safety. They can't kill you. They can't allow anybody else to outright kill you, except in a limited number of reasons, such as in the cases of state, or to prevent you from, bringing deadly harm to somebody else. They can't kill you. They have to provide you regular meals 3 times a day. They have to provide you 3 showers a week, 3 shaves, 5 hours exercise. That's it. That's the only thing that's the rule. Everything else beyond those particular categories, they have completely control over. It's discretionary. So as a consequence, they say that within their treatment, that they will give you things based on, your adjustment, your behavior, whatever the case is. But there's no criteria for what they use to determine. And from what I understand, the courts have backed them on that for quite a few years, where they supposedly, once reaching those particular positions, that they supposedly have enough understanding where the courts would leave it up to their discretion to determine what type of treatment program beyond the 3 hots and the cots that they would give them.
Let me ask you something, Russell. You've been in prison how long now?
24 plus years.
24 plus years.
That's correct.
And since the time you've been in prison, have you noted a decided shift in, first of all, the inmate population in their consciousness, and the way that the Department of Correction goes about administering the prison system, and if that shift has significantly changed your condition?
Well, the primary shift that I've noticed since I've been in the prison is the overwhelming numbers of prisoners who've come in the system. Presently, just within the state system, not counting the local systems, presently within the state system, they got over 30,000 prisoners. When I first came here, there was less than 4,000 prisoners in this system.
In Pennsylvania?
In Pennsylvania, it was less. I got that wrong. It was less than 5,000 prisoners within the Pennsylvania system. Now it's over 30,000 prisoners. That's the major change. The makeup of the prisoners has always essentially been the same in this state, which is roughly 60 or more % black, possibly 5 or more % Hispanic, and then the rest, were white. So that makeup is basically the same. However, this large influx of prisoners have radically changed how the prison system has been handled. When I first come to prison within this system here, the prison system was lock us up, but basically the treatment was relatively, although they hold us captive, you could at least get the things that you need. Nowadays, or at least within the last 8 or 9 years, because that's when the large influx begin to come in. Now you can't even get clothing you need. About all you can get nowadays is enough to eat.
Well, let me say this. That's the general conditions of prisoners. But now, your situation has been unique. You and other political prisoners have been treated differently. How long have you been in isolation, in this form of isolation?
I've been in isolation within these 24 years, over 16 or 17 years. Not straight.
Off and on.
But off and on, I've been in isolation.
And what has the pretext been for putting you in isolation?
Is that I'm just too much of a danger to the overall system.
Well, I mean, that's vague. Aren't all prisoners a danger to the system?
Well, in my case in particular, I've escaped more than once, and I've attempted to escape more than once.
Oh, I see.
So they always use the escape mainly.
You have one of them Kunta Kinte complexes.
I absolutely have a Kunta Kinte. My name is Maroon. I'm not about staying in an oppressive situation.
You ain't about staying.
Hell no. Anybody who sits up in prison and don't try to go.
I know we was trying to sit you down just now. Since you more comfortable staying.
That's out the question. They must don't know what them guns and guards and fences and wire and all that crap is for. Well, which I might add to that, which is nothing really extraordinary, because if my situation was so extraordinary, not saying that, I'm not in a category, that's outside of the normal category, because they don't have that many people within this whole system who escape successfully, on more than one occasion. However, the prison systems were built specifically to keep people here by force.
Yeah.
So that is actually a part of the overall dynamic.
That's what I was going to ask you. When you were housed in the other facilities in the state prior to the construction of this one, you were told that one of the reasons that you were treated the way you were treated was because there was no facility designed security-wise to afford you full programs. Once they had a facility, you would be afforded the full program.
That's correct.
And I imagine this was the facility they had in mind.
This was the facility that they built for guys like me because I'm amongst that small percentage, and most of that percentage, who whether they are escape risks or there are other risks that ordinarily that they feel as though that they cannot allow within the general populations within the other prisons because they weren't secure enough. They built this prison specifically for that, according to their own words and their documents and whatnot. And I was sent here. In fact, I was told as far back as 1991, I was told at that time I was in isolation also. And I was in the courts and otherwise asking why, with my behavior adjustment, which was no infractions period, because other than wanting to go home, I'm out of prison, because I don't see any reason to be involved in any type of infraction with anybody except for my own safety or whatever, something of that nature. So in light of the fact that I was a model prisoner, I wanted to know, the courts wanted to know, my relatives wanted to know, people was concerned about me, wanted to know how come I could not be released from the isolation. And I was told each time that each institution, that there was no institution in the whole state system that they felt within their judgment that would be safe for me, but they was building a new institution, state correctional institution in Green. And once this place was built, shortly afterwards, I came here in January '95 with the understanding from the other institutions that I would be released, assuming that I maintained my good, behavior record.
Have you applied to be released General,
I've applied to be released to general population each of my 30-day reviews.
They have a routine 30-day review.
They review me every 30 days. And each 30-day review that I attend, and I attend most of them, I ask the same thing for the record. Allow me to be released. However, on my first review that I came here, I asked to be released. And I was told in no uncertain terms that I would never be released there. At which time I brought up.
Who told you that?
I was told that by the deputy warden, Barney.
He's the deputy warden of operations or something?
He's the deputy warden of operations. This is mainly the top security man outside of the superintendent of the ward.
Is that unusual? That an inmate, that a prisoner is told that they would never be released, despite the fact that the system, the Department of Corrections has a policy requiring objective review of the inmate status, but he's told from the onset that this is basically a formality and that he's never going to be released. Is that unusual? Are there other inmates that are told that?
Well, it's not unusual to me because I've heard a little bit of everything since I've been in prison. But for purposes of the law, it's highly unusual because even that is outside of the parameters that they're given by all the laws and all the regulations that I'm familiar with. That there's no such thing as a forever thing with any type of, in any status within the correctional system.
Well, people have the impression that in the United States that the prison system is run based on some type of legal criteria, that the employees of the prison system are constrained by rules, that there's regulations that inmates must follow, and that if inmates follow the necessary rules, they're afforded certain privileges and certain concessions. If they don't, they're punished. And what you're saying, and what we hear you saying, is that in effect, except for the escape attempts that you have, which all prisons are designed to thwart, and that's the nature of prisons, to thwart escape attempts, that aside from that, you've been a model prisoner, but yet here you are in the maximum control unit within a maxi prison, handcuffed in a non-contact cage, based on your history in this system and not on your actual conduct. Is that what you're saying?
That's absolutely the case.
Do you think that's connected to your politics and to why you came to prison from the...
Well, not only is it connected to my politics, but it goes a little beyond that. In fact, I have been in the prisons with the top administrators of this prison when they weren't top administrators. In other words, I've seen them come up through the ranks because I've been here as long as most of them, and more than, as long as any of them, more than most of them. Let's just put it that way. And formerly, I've had contact with some of these top administrators, and in fact, I've had literally bodily, contact with some of these administrations. In fact, I escaped from one penitentiary, and one of the administrators, I was holding him hostage for a while. I didn't do any harm to him. I I just didn't want him to get in the way of my attempt to leave the institution. Well, at that time, he was not an administrator. You know, he was a low-ranking staff member. However, he's moved up through the ranks, and now he's an administrator. Well, I'm almost positive this weighs quite a bit on determining whether or not he would ever allow me in the population. In fact, the party that I said told me I would never be released, Deputy Varner, he is the individual that in 1977, when I escaped from the institution, you know, within the escape, him and a number of other guards were taken hostage and they was put in a room. None of them was harmed. But when I come up here, it seemed like to me, when I discovered that he was the deputy, I seen a conflict of interest there, but
that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, so the people that are passing on your ongoing,
they got me hostage now, where I had them hostage for about 5 minutes.
So people that are passing, so the people that are passing on your monthly on your status are people that you've had direct relationships with, and obviously there's a conflict of interest there.
Right.
What I wanted to ask you though was the status of your case now. You've been in jail over 2.5 decades. What is the status of your case now?
The status of my case is that I'm serving 2 life sentences, 19 and a half to 38 years, 5 to 10, 1 to 2, and 3.5 to 7. And all of these are running consecutive, which means that I have to finish each sentence before I would begin another one. In Pennsylvania, life is natural life. There's no years on life. The only way you can get rid of a life sentence within Pennsylvania, you have to be commuted. You have to get a commutation that's got to be signed directly from the government. Since I've been in this system, in this time, outside of some juvenile years where I was in juvenile institutions, the commutations that were given out does not amount, to my knowledge, to 100 prisoners. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of lifers over this 20-some years. So the commutation, as a general rule, is not really something that a life prisoner can look forward to. I don't know what the future will hold. Because as I say, when I first come to prison, it was only 5,000 prisoners. And it was a relative smaller percentage of lifers then. Now there's thousands and thousands of lifers because there's thousands of more prisoners. So I don't know whether or not that, you know, these prisoners will be offered commutation. And as far as myself, I doubt very seriously whether I have any type of chance for any type of commutation from this governor, who happens to be one of those supposedly tough on crime political governors, or any other governor, for the simple reason that my case originally is in relationship to the killing of a Philadelphia policeman. And it's highly unlikely, in my way of thinking, that they would release anybody on commutation who has got anything to do, you know, with the killing of a law officer. So my 2 lives and my other years that I got, although I constantly fight, and I've been fighting them 20-some years, I doubt very seriously whether there's any possibility of me ever leaving this system through the court system.
Well, you know, now, today, the issue of police brutality and the treatment of national minorities by the police are once again in the news, and it's becoming an issue. Like you said, you were convicted of a police murder. Do you think that your involvement in the Black Panther Party was the reason why you were convicted of this, as opposed to concrete evidence that you had anything to do with this?
Well, possibly. Probably. I have numerous FBI files that I received through the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act that says right on the face of them that my case was targeted specifically by the then head of the FBI, J. Edgar. My case, I was mentioned by name. I have at least close to 800 pages of these files, and I could probably get thousands of pages, but I was not ever allowed access to them without the money, and I don't have the money to buy them. but I could see crystal clear by the files that I got that I was absolutely targeted by the Department of Justice through its Federal Bureau of Investigation director to give specific hands-on direction as to what should be done with my case. So the reason I say possibly is because I don't know just what all was done in relationship to my case and what, my defense that I put forward. I don't know because I don't have access to these documents. But what I do have is people who, in other words, I don't have any federal charges, period. I never did have any federal charges. However, the director of the FBI, he got involved, of course, in my case because I was being sought on unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, which is a federal case. But as soon as I was captured, that was dropped. So nominally, there was not supposed to be any type of federal input. Nevertheless, I got these files where it shows that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, through its director, was into my case all the way up to, I don't know how far it goes, but it goes beyond the point where I was arrested and I was being tried. So I don't know what's there. I don't know without that whether or not, something is underneath what I do.
Are you familiar with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's program called PRISAC, Prison Activist Program?
Absolutely.
Do you know that this was a national program in which they trained state and local law enforcement and correctional officials into how to deal with political activists such as yourself? Do you think that you were targeted under this PRISAC while you were in Pennsylvania custody?
I couldn't say specific whether I was or not because I would have to have some documents to corroborate my ideas. But I do know this. I know that since the first day I've ever come in this system, outside of my attempting to liberate myself and to go home by escape and any other means, I have always been treated differently, especially to give you a perfect example. In 1989, I was sitting in the State Correctional Institution in Dallas, which is about 300 and some odd miles northeast of here. I was in lockup at that time also because I was sent there from another institution, allegedly because the other institution was doing some repairs. And once I got there, I was locked up because the institution allegedly could not contain my type of person. I was supposed to be too much of a escape risk. So I was pigeonholed into this institution until the other institution, which was a maximum security, could finish its repairs. That was in 1984. However, by 1989, after being in lockup at that institution for that reason, a rebellion, so-called riot, happened at the Camp Hill institution, which is another institution hundreds of miles away. It's an institution that I had been at maybe 3 weeks of my entire life, and I was only there just for a few minutes, maybe 10 years prior to that, to go to court. While sitting in the State Correctional Institution at Dallas, locked up in this hole, basically, the same way that I am now, only being allowed out of my, cell for exercise and to go to the shower, I was taken by the United States Marshals along with the prison guards out of there. Right after this riot or rebellion occurred at Camp Hill, without any type of warning, without any type of rationale, without anything, they came and got me, and they handcuffed me, and they suited me up, and they took me to the United States Penitentiary at Lewisburg, at which time they classified me to go to the United States Penitentiary at Maroon, Illinois. Now, I asked them, why would I go to this Maroon, Illinois? And I was told at that time by the classification board at Lewisburg, the federal penitentiary now, that I had been part of and a ringleader of the riots that just occurred at Camp Hill. And of course, I told them that I hadn't been at Camp Hill and all they had to do was check the records and whatnot. And they said they had the records. And I was in these riots, and therefore I was going to Maryland. But in the meantime, I was going to the United States Penitentiary at Leavenworth, Kansas, in order to await a spot at Maryland. So I was put on a plane. I was flew all around the country. Eventually, I got to Leavenworth. Once I got to Leavenworth, I was given this same rationale. I was locked up in Leavenworth. In the meantime, I was able to contact my relatives and some other people who was willing to look into the record. Once they looked into the record and they was able to retrieve the records themselves. They forward the records to the United States Penitentiary at Maroon, proving that I was not at Camp Hill. In fact, I was at Dallas. And it destroyed their rationale about forwarding me to Maroon, so they was forced to release me into the general population. That told me that somebody within the prison system was doing what I had seen them do on other occasions, which was demonic to me, wherever I'm at. And irregardless of whether I'm doing rule infractions or whatever I'm doing, if there's any way that they could manipulate me into another situation, worse or whatever the case is, they would do it. Because again, I was hundreds of miles away from
So does Pennsylvania have an interstate compact agreement with the...
They absolutely do.
And so you were in federal custody for a period of time?
I was in the federal custody for close to a year and a half.
And then they transferred you back to...
And then they transferred me back out of the federal custody, because a funny thing happened when I was in the federal custody. Once they found out, and I got the documents, that they weren't lying. I was told that the documents said that I did all this, said that I was in the Camp Hill and all this sort of crap. So they were operating off of these documents. At least they had documents to say that it was operating off. However, their hand was forced behind this exposure that I was manipulated there under false pretenses. So they allowed me into the general population, which I stayed, which is the first time I had been in the general population since 1983.
You didn't have any trouble while you were in general?
I had absolutely no trouble at all. In fact, I was one of them so-called quote-unquote model prisoners, which meant that I went to school, I went to work, I minded my business.
So this is basically the only time you've been in general population was when they tried to get rid of you out of the state system and send you to the feds, and the feds found out that they were bamboozled by the state, and they put you in general population, and then the state took you back.
And then the state, after about a year and a half, I don't know, they called for me back and they put me on another plane.
They missed you.
And they returned me. So as soon as I was returned, I was immediately put back in the hole. In fact, I was put back in the same institution. However, while I was at the federal penitentiary, I suspected that this wouldn't be forever. Nothing is forever, of course, so I collected all these documents about how I was manipulated to the federal penitentiary, my work and my school and my other adjustment record at the federal penitentiary, and I was in the general population. And I collected all these things and I presented them when I returned to the institution that sent me. But of course, they knew why they had sent me, so they wasn't really concerned with what I said when I come back. So I was locked up there. The only thing I was told is what I mentioned earlier, that look, we're building an institution for guys like you, and once that's built, you will be allowed to be in the regular general population. That was 1991. So once I come up here in 1995, I come to find that was a sham also.
Brother, it seems like you've been through hell and back. You think that you don't think that there's a campaign that's possible to change, at the very minimum, change your prison status?
It is my firm conviction.
First of all, have you ever brought a lawsuit or any type of legal action about your status? Did that get muffled? That's okay. Did you ever bring any type of legal action in regards to this type of treatment?
I've been bringing legal actions for the last 20 years. In fact, within that time, I've become a pretty accomplished jailhouse lawyer. I constantly bring legal actions on my behalf and other people's behalf. But this never does anything, in my case. It helps other people, but it never helps me.
But have you ever had an outside attorneys systematically deal with your conditions of confinement?
Unfortunately, no. I've never had an opportunity to get enough resources to obtain an outside attorney on my own, nor have I been provided one by any other source.
So the Department of Corrections, Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, have never seriously been challenged around their policy in terms of their treatment, your treatment?
Up to now, no, they haven't been seriously challenged, but they know all the issues because I believe I've become accomplished enough.
No, they've all been all the issues.
I've presented them.
But that's all been pro se.
Yeah, it's all been on my own. I've never had any type of outside help to help me put pressure on them
What do you think about that?
I think there is a very good possibility that I could be released from within this lockup type of confinement 23 hours a day if everything was exposed within a court of law that could not just sweep it under the rug because I'm a prisoner and nobody's looking over their shoulder. Because there is not too much of a rationale for keeping me locked up in confinement like this with the very good behavior record that I have.
Well, you know that now courts are very reluctant to interfere with prison officials running on the prison system. And they tend to defer to prison officials when it comes to matters of security and concerns like that. So what you're saying is that if you had a fair hearing, you think that even in that climate, even given those restrictive parameters, that you would probably at least at the very minimum, gain normal access to the to prison population? I
could gain the normal access to the prison population, I'm sure, with a fair hearing, with enough outside overview for the simple reason as we...
With enough outside what?
With enough outside overview for the simple reason, as we spoke earlier, is that this prison specifically was made as a maxi prison for that type of thing. And in fact, you have a number of people here, which it wouldn't be necessary and it wouldn't even be incorrect for me to call names as to people who is within this institution who have escaped, as I have, who have had weapons within inside the penitentiary, as I have. In fact, they have people in here who've killed a number of people, which I have not. So you have
and
people
they're walking
here
around
who are walking around within the general population. In fact, you have a number of them. So I'm being kept here for two basic reasons, I truly believe. And those are, one of them is personal vindictiveness on the part of some of the staff that I've had prior contact with. Number two is because I'm deemed by this same system, the overall system, not just State Correctional Institution at Green, but the whole Pennsylvania Department of Correction. I'm deemed as someone who will always attempt to do something positive on the part of the prisoners. Because, as I stated, I've become a pretty accomplished jailhouse lawyer, not because I thought that this would ever have me released from the prison system, because I don't really think it will. But I've become an accomplished jailhouse lawyer because I've seen that in order for me to stop the worst abuses that were occurring with myself and the other men who I was in sympathy with in the institution, I had to be able to put the long arm of the law on the people who were breaking the law. So I learned the law just specifically for that reason. So I'm a threat because not only am I within certain people's minds a potential escape risk, but I am also a threat because I've come across as one who would not tolerate under no circumstances someone going against things that I know they're not supposed to go against. We're all supposed to go by the same rules. So there's sort of a leveling here. Although I'm a prisoner here, I got rules and you got rules too. So you follow the rules and I'll follow the rules. And then outside of that, we'll pursue whatever else we're pursuing. I'll pursue to try to, be released from prison or to get out of prison, and you pursue trying to keep me here and to do your job. But don't overstep them bounds, because if you do, I'm going to put the whole weight of the law on you. So that's a threat to them because they like to overstep the bounds in the cases where they know, and in the cases where they don't know, then they overstep the bounds through ignorance.
Mm-hmm. So it's obvious that unless there's some type of public scrutiny around the treatment that you are going through and other political prisoners are going through, not much is going to be done about it.
Nothing that I know of. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
and you're getting a little more than what is the reality, because I said I'm usually not even in these type of clothing. This is the first time I've seen a shirt and a pair of pants since I've been
I was getting ready to say, how did you press these? That shirt looks pretty sharp.
Not only this, I don't even wear shirts and pants. I wear a canvas jumpsuit with blue lines and a white background, and it looked like something out of one of those concentration camps in Nazi Germany. It's the first time I've seen anything like this. I'm assuming this is for the cameras and whatnot. I can't assume it's for anything else, because I've never given access to none of this.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. In trying to do the work around political prisoners, one of the problems that we encounter again and again is the incredulous attitude that people have when we tell them about cases like yours, where brothers and sisters, brothers that have been in prison over 25 years in the United States. Most people don't have a understanding of this history, and they don't have an understanding that the political prisoners exist. I think that that's beginning to change somewhat. In your view, what is it that you think our people should be doing and need to be doing around cases like yours and cases like Mumia's and cases like the New York 3? What is it you think that people out here should be trying to do?
Well, my concern specifically in that arena is this. I'm not really concerned about myself or people like me, for the simple reason that we collectively within this prison system and our overall communities within the country and the country in general has much more pressing problems when it comes to prison than problems like mine. Of course, I'm being brutalized or whatnot, sensory and perceptual deprivation, just by being kept within a box about the size of this room here for years on end. However, we have much, much more pressing situations than mine. We have the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. If our communities, if the people who are aware of this, the people who are not aware of this, if something is really not done in his case, I suspect that the state will kill him in the not too distant future. Mumia Abu-Jamal has successfully exposed so many inconsistencies about the criminal justice system and about the overall situation that people find themselves in contact with the criminal justice system, which is the blacks, other ethnics, and the poor people, that he has become an extreme threat to the overall system. So a person like Mumia, we're like in a giant bullseye, and he's in the center, and I'm about 8 rungs way out there someplace. So everybody's trying to get a bullseye. So they're trying to get people like him. Even outside of him, you have other people who I'm more concerned about personally before you get to people like me. And that's other people all around the country who are on death row. And these are men who I have to extrapolate from my own knowledge and my own experiences within this system, where I've been locked up on death rows for years at a time with other men because of my security status, although I never had the death penalty. I've been locked up on death row with men that I know for a fact had no business being on death row, if nothing else, that some of these men were totally mentally incompetent, although I'm not any type of doctor, or don't hold myself out to be one, but I'm not no fool either. And I can see that these men had no reason, or I can see that no other men would have a reason to destroy these men, because these men were not responsible for themselves, at least at that time. Not at the time of the crime, but at a possible time that they might possibly be destroyed by, capital punishment. These men are still within these institutions, within this Pennsylvania state system. I've been on death row with scores of men who are still on death row now throughout the state, many of them within this institution, that I know for a fact. Some of them were mentally incompetent, according to the law. Some other ones, it seemed highly likely to me that it's a good possibility that they did not receive fair trials. And then when you go outside of the system, you have a system similar, you have situations similar to that throughout the country. In particular, and this brings us a little closer to the bullseye, right now, within the state of Indiana, you have men who are presently, who are in a life and death struggle, a number of them, with the prison system of the state of Indiana. They are literally in a struggle with the prison system where prisoners are being executed, guards are being killed. The guards say that the prisoners are killing guards in retaliation, and the prisoners are not owning up to any of these killings, but the guards are winding up dead, and the prisoners are being executed. Now these people, they don't have wide coverage within the news or whatnot, and they don't have.
When you say the prisoners are being executed, what do you mean they're being executed? They're being executed according under the guise of law, like executed in the gas chamber, or you mean they're being killed illegally and surreptitiously within the inmate population by police, by guards?
They're being killed under the guise of law. But nevertheless, these men have situations and have street cases that makes it highly suspect whether or not that they receive fair trial. In 1994, December 1994, a brother named Gregory Resnover, he was executed by the state of Indiana in relationship to the killing of a police officer. I believe last month another man was scheduled to be executed in the state of Indiana in relationship to the same alleged killing of this police officer. I've read what that I could get through the channels of the law library about this case, and what limited amount that I've been able to understand, glean about the law up to now, I'm positive that these men did not receive just a generalized fair trial. They received a prejudicial trial. One of them has already been executed. Another was scheduled. In fact, he might have been executed because the last I read about him through the legal documents a couple months ago, he was scheduled to be executed last month. A third man was locked up and given a charge of allegedly killing an officer, allegedly in retaliation for the killing of the first man. The whole system is in an uproar within the state of Indiana right now. Those type of things to me put those type of situations much more closer to what needs to be done to address things than people that's in my situation, for the simple reason that if the various state and other systems can get away with doing these type of things, then they build up a sort of momentum that allows them to train, refine, and make adjustments where they can do more things of this nature to people that in fact don't belong in their position, period. Although I'm against any type of capital punishment, irregardless of how heinous the crime is, for the simple reason I think that the system is way too much on the side of the criminal justice system for them to be put to death, any type of prisoner, period, within the United States. Be that as it may, I believe that these are more or less test cases since the reintroduction of capital punishment to make it a dire threat to people like me, who is an admitted one who will, under no circumstances, who will back down or will ever allow this system or any other system to oppress me or to oppress anybody else that I could possibly help, which leaves me potentially open to being manipulated or otherwise wind up in a situation where my life could be taken. So I see that as a threat to me. So I think that they are the type of people, them and the people who's on death row in general within the country. Those are the type of people that I'm more concerned with before you get to a case like me, because I got a lot more breathing room than they do. I got a lot more time to think, to plan, and to attempt to use my own type of devices and rely on the source of universal power to bring something forth that I'm not aware of to change the balance of things before things get to me. I'm not really concerned with myself as much as I'm concerned about these situations.
Well, that seems to be one of the major qualities of political prisoners like yourself, a consistent and principled concern for trying to advance the cause of people other than yourselves. And I think that's one of the sad parts that we have to deal with in the streets, the lack of support for brothers and sisters like yourself who are in prison, who have made those sacrifices. One of the things that, as activists on the outside, that we find difficult to deal with is trying to translate the support around the anti-death penalty support around cases like Mumia into a broader principled support for political prisoners in general, to build some type of institutional structures that will bring your case and the case of other political prisoners to the public scrutiny, at least at the very minimum, as you well know now, to try to bring black elected officials to the position where they will begin to question exactly what the counterintelligence program has done in our community, re-examine cases like yourself to see if you were accorded an objective and fair hearing, to see if you are still being subjected to abuse by officials of the state because of your background and because of your consistency and opposition to the state. I think that that's the greatest challenge now, is trying to build some type of broader movement to deal with the concerns of all political prisoners. I think some of the things that's coming now out of the reports, like Amnesty International's report on the New York City Police Department, on the San Francisco Police Department, on the Chicago Police Department, I think that these reports have shown people around the world that these institutions that they look to as the paragon of law enforcement integrity are in fact racist, are in fact run by men who are very venal, unprofessional, and who will break the law in carrying out their ends. And I think that while it's noble that someone like yourself would see the case of Mumia and the other political prisoners on death row as important, I think that one of the reasons that we wanted to get exposure for your case and other cases is precisely because people really have to hear stories like yours and really have to understand that this stuff is going on right now as we speak. The type of treatment that's accorded, that you're accorded here in this prison, and indeed over the entire period of your incarceration, is something that people should be absolutely horrified by. And I think that the fact that it's not is a sad commentary on those of us who claim to be human rights activists, who claim to be concerned about the abuse of power in this society.
Let me say this in relationship to that. What I think that people should be horrified about, and I agree with you, they don't know. I know for a fact that they don't know, because it's my firm conviction that if they did know, irregardless of what their stance is on crime in general, on particular crimes, in particular the death penalty, any given variable that you want to pull out of the overall crime or the security matrix as it applied to citizens, I'm positive that if they were aware of the fact that people were being kept in situations like I'm being kept, because I'm not the only one being kept in this situation. As I said, there's 386 units just within this particular institution where everybody is equally treated the same way that I am, and as far as the sensory perceptual deprivation. And if they were aware that you have situations like this all across the country, you have more situations like this just within the Pennsylvania state system. They're not as large as this, but you have control units throughout the state system. And if the general public was aware of the effects that this had on the individual that stayed in here, and was also aware of the fact that the overwhelming majority, if not 95 or more % of these prisoners will eventually be released and will be returning to their communities. And if they was aware of the fact that this type of situation clinically from the various type of studies that were done, which are voluminous, have shown that this type of situation generally causes a man or woman to do one of two things. It causes you to retract, or it causes you to coil up like a spring. If you retract, you become like a vegetable. You're no more use to yourself and you're no more use to anybody else, which amongst this 90-some%, those parties become a burden when they return to society. But those who recoil, they become more of a burden for the simple reason that they're like a spring that's tightly coiled, and they will be returning to the street. So when they return to the street, not only will they not be returning to prison, but they become an extreme danger
to society,
to the overall society. And the reason they become a danger is because of the policies of these institutions that, I might add, they have absolutely no legal or moral mandate or justification to pursue policies like this, in particular because these policies have been tried over and over again in the past, going back hundreds of years. And every time they attempt to pursue a policy that of this extreme deprivation that caused men to recoil or to turn into vegetables, it overflows on the overall society, because these men return to the society and they're not productive individuals, and in the extreme situation they're extremely lethal and dangerous individuals. So usually it's not looked at holistically by those who are not really familiar with it, and they see one thing in particular. They see that these who become a danger are dangers to the society, but they don't make the connection because of their ignorance of the overall matrix. They don't make the connection of those who were, through malfeasance, misfeasance of their mandate, help make them into this extreme threat. And as a general rule, they don't be a threat to these people who made them a threat, because these people who made them that, they are intimately familiar with this because they live with these men while they're making them that, and they wouldn't be no place around them once they left the institution. So when they leave the institution and they become bigger problems on the system, where they become extremely dangerous, then what it does in effect is it has a snowball effect, and it ensures these people that they have a job, and so that they can keep recreating the same thing. So in effect between them, other unprincipled politicians, they play on this, and they just say community be damned.
So you're saying there's a cycle of violence and a cycle of antisocial behavior that's perpetrated within these prison systems by the prison's treatment of people who come into their charges, and then they're eventually released into the community.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that it's criminal. It's so well documented, and it's been spoken against so many times, that it's truly criminal. And not only has it been documented on the national level, but it's been documented on the international level through the various agencies, reports and whatnot within the United Nations and the related non-government organizations. They have documented this crystal clear what this type of treatment does.
Well, yes, there have been forms of sensory deprivation. And I'm glad you brought this up, because I think that there have been extensive studies, especially in Germany, on the German political prisoners who had undergone long-term sensory deprivation and long-term isolation, and there have been studies that have been done on this phenomena. And you're absolutely right. I think that one of the things that perhaps will have to be done, and that this entire phenomena is going to have to be revisited again in terms of the United States penal system and how it's dealing with political prisoners, especially now that there are this new anti-terrorist legislation on the bill, and political incarceration seems more likely, overt political incarceration seems more likely in the United States. But we only have a little bit of more time left, and so I wanted to ask you in closing, you have not been able to really have your voice projected out into the community now. And a lot of times people think that because a person's in prison that they don't have a valid viewpoint or an analysis of what's happening on the outside. And even given your limited access to reading material and media, what types of observations would you really want people to reflect on? I mean, what would you think? What are some of the things you would like to say to people right now at this particular point in history?
Well, the thing that comes across to me, because I have plenty of time to think and reflect, my access to various reading and research materials is restricted. But from the materials that I could get, and the amount of time that I've been able to reflect, and the amount of years that I've been in the penitentiary, gave me a whole bunch of time to put together a whole bunch of bits and pieces. And of course, I bounce these off of people like yourself in a situation like this, family members, people that I write or whatnot, because if anything, I can get more out of writing and receiving that.
How important is family to you?
Family to me is the beginning and end of everything. I mean, after all, we all come from family. Family is it. My family, which I have 7 children myself, I'm from a large family. I'm from a family of 12 siblings and a mother and father. I had what I would consider, in terms of my particular racial group, I had a middle class upbringing. So I always had, in that sense, I always had a father and mother in the home. I was taken to church. I had a relatively stable home life. So I came up in a family setting. I have nothing but good memories of our family. And I was married twice, and from that it was 7 children. And all of them are grown at present. And I have been alienated from them from different...
When was the last time you touched any of your family? When was the last time you touched any of your family members?
1990.
Was that in court or something?
No, that was in the United States Penitentiary 11 work when I was full.
When you had full privileges.
Yes.
1990. And before then?
1983. In other words, I keep doing these 5-6 year stretches in the hole until something extraordinary happens, and I'm generally forced out of the hole. Mm-hmm. Or in some instances, maybe I can force myself out. But at any rate, I haven't had much physical contact with my family, or my own offspring, but I've had plenty of contact with them through writing in particular. And as a consequence, through them and others, I'm able to attempt to keep my finger on the pulse of the overall society. I think family is extremely important. To me, it's more important than anything else. However, as in answer to your question about in general, it's my feeling that we, all of us here, and everybody within these United States in particular, we are in what I consider a pre-crisis period within the whole country. Of course, it don't look that way because, there's no Soviet Union, so-called Cold War. The country itself is not in a war where the young men are going off. The young men and young women are not going off any place risking their life. The economy is kind of bad or whatnot, but I truly believe, from my own observations, from my study, from my research and whatnot, that the United States is in a pre-crisis period. And I believe the crisis is being brought about through a complete realignment of the economic forces within the entire world. And because of this realignment with the economic forces brought about mainly from the subduing, for all practical purposes, of the Soviet Union and their various type of satellite states or their clients all over the world, this alignment has allowed and given full access to United States capital and other competing capital, whether it's in Japan, within Western Europe or whatnot, complete access to what they really want, which is labor, cheap labor, and markets for their goods and whatnot. Now, I don't want this to come across like this is some type of purely or involved, economic critique, because it's not. I'm just saying that's one of the levers that's pushing us toward this alignment. In the meantime, you've had in this country for different ethnics for hundreds of years a pre-crisis situation. We know that with the Native Americans, they've been in crisis since Columbus and the clown stepped off the boat. With the African Americans, we've been in crisis from the moment that they put some stuff like this on us and dragged us over here. The Mexicans down on the border, Mexican Americans, they call them down, the Mexicanos, Chicanos, and whatnot, the states of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and California. They've been in crisis ever since they come in contact with these same European forces. However, each one of these different racial and ethnic groups was in crisis that was somewhat isolated, or was kept isolated from a generalized crisis within the overall society, and as a consequence, they was able to be contained. I see something that's happening on the horizon now, in my own particular opinion, that has not happened in this country, at least since the Civil War, different type of crisis, and that's that this country, through its economic froze, and it's in an economic froze, which I think basically is capital within this country, is exporting itself throughout the world, seeking the cheapest ways to do things. But I think that their strategy for real is not to leave this country. I think their strategy is a broad attack against the overall masses in this country. The white masses, which is the majority, I think that they are the primary target that's being targeted by this capital, and this capital want to leave the country until that they can get them, strangle them down to the point that when they return to this country, and I believe they're coming back because there's a massive infrastructure here, educational and otherwise, that they want to use with these workers. And I believe they're going to strangle them down, and when they return, they're going to put them into semi-slavery type of situations, which they call minimum wage. In the meantime, the Africans in America, the Native Americans, the other ethnics who are on the bottom, we're going to be crushed even more so. But as long as we were separated...
Yeah, the institutionalization of the poor, The institutionalization of the poor and the institutionalization of poverty, according to caste and class and gender, is becoming very much a reality in America. Welfare is being eliminated. Minimum wage was a struggle that people had to fight tooth and nail for. People now are put to work doing menial tasks just to stay on welfare. Welfare is inadequate to meet people's needs. Food stamps are being cut back. Aid to dependent children is being cut back. So there's a whole strata of people who are being institutionalized into poverty. And in fact, those middle class jobs that people had acquired to run this bureaucracy, as a consequence of the bureaucracy needed to administer to the poor, are themselves going to be thrown out of work as a consequence of this. So I think that what you're talking about, the globalization of sweatshops, so to speak, the creation of a prison industry, a captive population to produce cheap labor, is something that we're seeing in terms of privatization efforts around prison systems, in the return to quasi-slave prison labor. I think you're absolutely right. But
in that relationship, let me just say one more thing. I don't think that it will be just smoothly the suppressing of wages, because in fact I don't think that the overwhelming majority of the American people will even stand for it. And as a price, and as a consequence, the real crisis I see is that there's a potential in this country for a whole lot of turmoil. And when the turmoil comes, I doubt very seriously whether it will be directed at the very people that's responsible.
I think we see that happening now with the right wing and their disenchantment.
That's the crisis that I was speaking of.
Don't interrupt us. Don't worry about it. Just keep going.
Okay. So, you know, there were a few other questions too that we never really got into.
You have actually about 7-8 minutes left.
How much? How much is it?
Yeah, we have
what type of support do you recommend that? Is it okay? What type of support work do you think people should start to do now in order to build consciousness around the use of the law for political repression, and the fact that there are political prisoners in jail, and the fact that the death penalty is increasingly being used as a mechanism for social control of national minorities? What type of work do you think people really should start to do now?
I firmly believe that within the African American community, within other ethnic communities, and the overall society in general, that there is more potential to ameliorate some of the effects of these things, if not turn them completely around, within the religious community than any place else.
Well, the religious community you're talking about in the Christian community, in the Muslim community,
and the various religious communities, I should say. The reason where I think that it's more potential there is because outside of the institutional strength of the religious community within the Africans in America's community, the religious community has a moral base that can come to grips with what's going on better than anything else that I think that's available within the overall society. The reason that I believe that the religious community can be stimulated to work on this moral base is based around the same reasons that these other individuals from the other side of the spectrum, from the right, is trying to push off a lot of the responsibility that they would otherwise have to assume and not pocket the proceeds from the taxes and whatnot. They recognize that also that this religious community can be morally recruited to see that they have to take up the slack of some of these individuals in the society that need their help. I think the same religious community can be shown morally, and I think for moral reasons, that they have it within themselves, I think that they would be more responsive than any other part of the society to go to with these particular type of concerns. If the religious community within the Africans in America's overall societies, if they knew about what was going on in these penitentiaries, they would, number one, they would have a decided difference about how their tax dollars should be used and to attack the crime problem, which is a real problem. But they would also know that the crime problem couldn't be attacked by putting it in here and letting it speed up and become supercharged in here and then return to the street and to perpetuate itself, because it was fine-tuned within these penitentiaries. They could rise to the occasion. They are the people who the case can be made to, whether it's the Christian community, the Muslim community, any other group that has a moral foundation, because they are only would be attending these particular institutions is because something inside of them telling them that they should attempt to do right and forbid wrong. And as a consequence, these are the people that you're supposed to go to, and you say part of your responsibility is stopping others and encouraging others to do wrong. Not encourage them to do wrong, but prevent them from doing wrong and to encourage them to do right. The right wing in this country is thoroughly familiar with that. But the right wing, as we know, is manipulating it against people they have no business manipulating it against. But they don't have, by any shadow a calculation in my mind. They don't have the ear of the overwhelming majority of the religious people in this country. And the overwhelming majority of the religious people in this country, I believe, is the balance that will determine whether or not that prisoners who are wrongly being treated, from normal prisoners, social prisoners, to political prisoners, I think the religious community, they have the balance to determine whether or not this treatment will be changed.
Well, I just want to say, Russell, that I hope that we could edit some stuff from this tape and use it to try to at least bring some attention to the long-term torture that you've been undergoing. I just want to say, brother, that your strength is phenomenal. It revitalizes me, and I have a lot of work to do. Most of my work is going to be in Europe over the next 6 months, from Africa to Europe, around these issues. And I think that bringing attention to your case, and especially to your ongoing torture, and trying to bring the state of Pennsylvania to be accountable for that, is going to be a very interesting struggle. And I say very interesting struggle because it's clear that it's not sufficient just to imprison you, that there's another agenda here.
Absolutely.
And that the agenda is not just to imprison someone because they broke the law. The agenda is to break someone because of what they believe and stand for. And that the breaking of this person is very, very important to the integrity of the state. And I think that, as you pointed out, the American public, and indeed the public at large, should understand that when the state has an investment in breaking another human being's spirit because of what they stand for and what they believe, then we need to look at the type of state that we are permitting to operate in our name. And I just want to say, brother, you stay strong, and I am deeply honored to be able to do this interview, and I hope that in the future we can do something much more extensive, and hopefully from behind this glass. And so I think that that's one of the next struggles that we have to wage, is getting you from behind this glass, at least in the short term. That's not your freedom, and I understand that. But I think that the process in doing that will enable people to look at cases like yours and begin to see what they're really about. So again, brother, it was good to see you.
And I'm glad I was given this opportunity to, in particular, talk to you.
Well, that's your daughter did that.
But I'm very glad to get that opportunity. Because,
well, you have some children. You have some children that are warriors, that have an indomitable spirit, just like their daddy, and that's something they can't take away from you, and that's something they can't take away from our community. So I'm just saying.
And that's, I believe, the failure in this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. They didn't plan that one.
It can't be taken.
They didn't plan that one.
The only way it can be taken is when I'm 6 feet under. Other than that, I'm going.
Well, when that happens, and when we're all 6 feet under, then we become ancestors.
Absolutely.
And our spiritual power then goes to those young folks to continue.
But I'm glad to be given this opportunity, and I would like for you to, in particular, tell Sister Tanaquil that I was asking about her.
Oh, she knows.
And I hear so much about her that I can't wait for the day.
She's the pariah. She's the pariah out there. Well, you must drop us a line,
okay, and
let us know what's happening. Okay, bro?
I'll do that.
And stay in touch with me in Africa. You got the address and everything.
I do.
Okay.
But tell the sister I can't wait for the day that I sit down and talk to her.
Well, she's going to come see you.
That's good.
Next month.
Because I done heard so much about her that I know being in her presence would be like talking to Harriet Tubman or somebody.
Sure.
So I love you kind of sisters, and keep on doing what you're doing, brother.
Okay, bro.
Yes, sir.
Stay strong.
Okay.
You got
Peace. This is Brother Shep. I'd like to first welcome all those of you who came on after our original introduction and first part before the film. And we have Jalil still on board. And Darupa might be a little hung up because he's in Africa, but if he comes on, then we'll make sure that we do the introduction for him. But we have Jalil. We also have Brother Kazi, who is also a veteran Panther and former political prisoner of war. And Kazi, I'd just like you to just give us a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and welcome yourself into this conversation before we move on.
Sure. Thank you, Brother Shep. Well, for those that don't know, my name's Kazi Toure. I'm a former political prisoner, locked up for sedition. Same thing Nelson Mandela was locked up for. So they can't say there's no political prisoners here. Sedition is a political charge in itself. This was really good. It's the first time. I mean, I've been trying to get in to see Russell for a minute, you know, ever since I got, well, not since, ever since I got out, but before he got sick. And there was a lot of problems, you know, with us getting in and out of certain joints. And I couldn't get in for a few reasons. But on the topic of his health now, and I know that film was 25 years ago, it really hurts, man, to see right after Chip died and Mumia being close to it. We had that scare last week with him open heart surgery and being chained to the bed. And the same thing with Matulu and his health problems. Yeah, man, like I agree with you know, I think the prong approach or the three-prong approach, I agree with us strategizing and trying to get the people out through contacting, you know, all those religious groups and whatnot, and trying to mobilize them and contacting people in the street and trying to, you know, mobilize them and bring all the forces that we can together. Because, I mean, look, man, people could see after it took 30 million people and international pressure to get one man some so-called justice, and we haven't seen what's going to come from that trial with George Floyd. You know, that was it took a big effort to get that spotlight on him and on Black people as far as being killed by the pigs in the street. So it's going to take even more than that to get our people. And I think, man, we have to look at other means of getting them out too. As far as I know, it might run a little risk saying this, but they'll look at how some of our other comrades was liberated, you know? And, you know, it's time for the next generation to step up, man, and, you know, start brick by brick, wall by wall, tearing them motherfucking prisons down, man. You know, they have to feel it from all sides and all angles, you know, and people can't be afraid, man. You know, we got to do what we got to do. We're going to save our people's lives. That's it for me, man. You know, on the move, man. Free them all.
Right on, brother.
Stiff resistance, man. On the move.
Okay, Spirit, if you could throw up the Maroon tree, what we're going to do real quick is just let people be familiar with how you can get involved, and then we're going to go straight to the Q&A. Again, if you didn't put your questions in, please do so. I don't know if Sister Naima got on yet, but Noah, you got to help me out with this, going through the chat and identifying folks. So you got
Yes.
the tree right now. Just explain to
Yes.
people what it's about. And for those who came
Okay.
on late, Sister Noah is a niece of Russell Maroon Schultz.
Yes, peace, everyone. I don't know if it's my screen or if it's your screen, Spirit, but it appears to be a bit blurry. However, this is our link tree, and we'll have it inside of the chat for you all, and we'll post it on YouTube for you all to see, to visit. And here you can find all information regarding Russell Maroon Schultz, our events, fundraising opportunities, and how you can directly support Maroon in these efforts for his liberation. So thank you so much for that. And I have your 6, Baba Shep, when it comes down to asking the questions in the chat.
Okay, so again, if y'all could just quickly look at that. That was actually put together by Sister Naeem, one of our Panther Cubs. And you can see the events we have coming up on the May 2nd direct action, which is actually people are meeting on that right now as we speak. And apologies for people who got confused with that time and this event. Sometimes that happens. Our website is there. Our Tiny Homes fundraiser, donate to Maroon, the Maroon Party, Liberation Party, the books, the camp, all the information is there. All you gotta do is click on, find out where you can fit in and where you want to get involved. And please come on board. We can use you not just for the PE classes, but to actually get involved and bringing our people home. And I think that folks see how brilliant our comrades are and why they are captured by the enemy. Because they don't want them out here, because we'd be free if they were all out already. I'm pretty sure of that, at least close to it.
We do have a few questions, Baba Shep. I just want to
before you do that,
let
me just go through the last thing. So into no questions. Thank you. Spirit, if you can pull up tomorrow, Friday, and Sunday's events, so I can just do that and be done. While he's doing that, just so you know, we actually were dealing with 8 days of to free Russell Maroon Schultz. We had the event in Philly on the 25th, and since we had time between there and our car caravan, which I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna hit the governor's house with a message. It's a peaceful message, and so you'll get that information. But before that, tomorrow we're going to show a film that Russell's son, Russell Maroon Jr. or the third, did on his dad, and we're trying to make sure that he's there for Q&A afterwards, as well as anyone else in the Maroon family. It's going to be a family thing that we want to try to do tomorrow. May Day, which is Saturday. Any of you that are going to any events on May Day, we want you to hold up the banner to free our freedom fighters. That's what May Day is going to be about for everybody on this call. I'm supposed to speak at a couple of events. Wherever you are, put their names out, bring a poster, bring a flyer, bring something to let people know that no matter what they're doing for May Day, that before people got captured, they were doing the same exact thing that everybody else is out here doing, whether it's police brutality, housing, education, gentrification, no matter what your struggle is. We were doing it back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that's why we had political prisoners. So you stand on their shoulders, it's time to bring them home. Sunday Out is 84 years old. No reason why the brother should still be locked up. So you see on the links, these are the events coming up. Right there, you see the Friday, tomorrow's event. It's going to be a virtual dinner watch party. So get your food together, kick back, watch the film, and then we'll have folks from Russell's family there to talk about the film. There's the May Day. Again, it's an outreach day. Get that information out. to free Maroon and all U.S. federal and state captured political prisoners and POWs. And then last but not least, Sunday. And I don't see the image, but we got a few of them. If you go to that tree that Sister Noah just talked about, you can see all those flyers. So we need people to get in that caravan. We need cars from Jersey, New York, Philly, Pittsburgh to join in with the caravan so we can spread that message and get, there it is, get this governor, he can let them home tomorrow. Both of them, Mamiya and Russell. You know, and they can come home. So we got to convince him to do that. That said, let's get to the questions. I saw Daruba Hat popped in. Again, he's in Africa, so I don't know, he might be having problems, but we got Kazi and we got Jalil. So let's get to the first question, and we're gonna rock these Q&As until folks decide they had enough. All right, Noah, you can hit one and then we'll just go back and forth.
Okay, so I have a question for the panelists. What are next steps 1, 2, and 3? How can we bring more home? How can we hold more killer cops accountable?
Let's start out with Jalil.
Okay. First of all, let me say I'm down in the kitchen because I'm trying to feed myself something to eat, man. I've been here. I'm in Ramadan, man. I'm starving like Marvin right about now. Okay.
Yes.
So, hey, yo, in regards to what we can do, join an organization. Get involved with organizations dealing with issues of political prisoners, whether it's a Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition or the Jericho movement. Join and support. Second of all, be adherent to the idea of what we're trying to do for October 22nd and 24th with the International Tribunal 2021, where we bring our case and bring our issues to the international community. It's important for you to get involved with that. We got to make that historic. We got to make it to a point where the United States is embarrassed by the fact that the international community is overseeing what the hell is going on in the United States and what's happening to Black people, African people in this country, and particularly what's going on with our political prisoners. That's extremely important. Kazi made mention about something about tearing down the walls, right? And I'll put that in some kind of context, right? Tearing down the walls means we have to become abolitionists, all right? Our whole idea in regards to our struggle is that we become abolitionists and our thinking in terms of building something, an alternative to what exists today, right? I have a book, as you well know, many of you know, called We Are Our Own Liberators. And the idea of that is that we have to build towards creating alternative institutions that will seek to build a movement, right? Daruba with Maroon, he talked about that we need to build a united front, right? And my goals and objectives, I think we need to build a front for the liberation of the New African nation, right? We need to build a united front. And in that instance, we create alternatives. Also, we have to begin to think in terms of being abolitionists, but also think of being decolonization, right? On our own thinking, we have to decolonize ourselves in our dependence on this government, right? We have to figure out ways how to become emancipators, right? Emancipate ourselves from this government and the oppression of this government. And so with these ideas of emancipation, abolitionists, and liberation, or you put these three things together and understand the nature of them, then we begin to free our minds and our ass will follow. Free our minds and begin to move in the direction of our own decolonization and liberation. And this is a process, right? As you well know, how you think is the determining factor of what you do, or how you behave. And if you think like a slave, you're gonna act like a slave. Right? When you think like a revolutionary, you're gonna act like a revolutionary. And we gotta begin to start thinking like revolutionaries and act in that capacity in all ways, in every thinking hour, every breath that we take. We got to begin to think in terms of our own abolitionists, being emancipators, and being liberators, right? Join a political prisoners support group. of any kind, whether it be the ABCF Federation, or whether it be in California, there's a prison support group out there, right? Free 'em all. None Left Behind, I think is the name of it, right? In California, whether it be the again the Northeast Coalition, Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition, or the Jericho Movement. Join, support, right? In any way that you possibly can.
Okay, Brother Kazi, you want to chime in with that? Before I say, I just want to let people know there's over 300 people on the YouTube that have been watching this event. So we got an audience, so let's get them questions out. Brother Kazi.
Well, you know, I don't think I can add anything more to what Jaleel said. You know, the most important thing is that people get in the organization, join the organization of something that's fighting for the release of political prisoners, and we put the pressure on. Because, man, you know, it's going to take an all-out effort. And from every, you know, all the spokes in the wheel have to be there. You know, the bicycle wheel won't turn properly if all the spokes aren't there. So, you know, there's a few spokes missing in our organization. We have to put it all together, brother.
Sister Noah, you got another question there?
Yes, we do have a question for the Veteran Panthers. What needs to be done in order to connect struggles of freedom fighters against police terrorism and freeing all political prisoners? And then another question following that, do the Veteran Panthers have any advice to do this?
You know,
let me say something right quick about that, Kazi.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, right? One thing the Black Panther Party did back in the days, which you have been incorporated as to what we call Cop Watch, right? We need to develop alternatives to the system from which the cops have become accountable to the community, all right? That's extremely important. One thing we want to talk about is defunding the cops, defunding the police, right? Build on that idea, right, of defunding. Another thing is that you want to challenge these institutions that they call police unions, right? Understand that the police is an arm of the state, right? They're not workers in that sense of their operations. They operate as an arm of the state. And so therefore, we have to figure ways how to create conditions from which they cannot function, particularly cannot. They are as a function, as a terrorist function of the state, right? And suppression of people's movement and liberation struggles. Our goal and objective is to figure out ways how to eliminate their capacity to do so. So build a movement to defund the police, right? That's one way to do it, and also build Cop Watch programs in your community.
See,
Kazi, before you go,
I
just wanted to acknowledge King Downing was one of our activist attorneys.
Yeah,
and, he was actually one of the community workers for the Panther Party back in the day. I don't know if he didn't join because he was in law school or what, but just introduce yourself real quick, and we're putting you on board. I just hit the roof off. I know he was there and we lost him, but it might be because he's in Africa. But introduce yourself real quick, King.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brother Shep. Appreciate you putting this program together. And Spirit Child, for me, this is the unity of the cultural work and the political work. So respect to Maroon as an artist and to the political prisoners who were here. Jaleel, I still look forward to meeting you face to face again. And I hope that happens soon. You kind of saved me. I was trying to type in a question and now I kept jacking it up. So now I can kind of ask that question because what I was going to ask was, the issue of the counterintelligence program came up, and a lot of times we kind of stick that back into history. And so my question to the veterans, all of the veterans, I can start with Kazi, he was about to speak next, is instead of just getting into the history, there are books like the COINTELPRO papers, the War Repression, Agents of Repression by Ward Churchill, and then The War at Home by Brian Glick. So people can read up on the past part. But what I wanted to ask you all is, how can people who are organizing today, what are practical steps they can do to protect themselves against this operation, which is now moving forward in the, at what I call COINTEL 3.0, which is the Black identity extremist designation that they put on Black Lives Matter and other people? That's my question.
Oh, bro, that's a good one. Let me first say that I don't think that the police, I think the police is their poison, and they're fruit of a poisonous tree. And I don't think they can be reformed. And I think they're going to keep killing us, man. We need to separate or get away from these people. That's how I feel. I feel like, you know, we need to have a second, be speaking in one voice to push for a second reconstruction, the one that was cut short, you know, and us push for, because they're going to keep killing us, man. You know, as long as, and capitalism's not going to get rid of the police, you know, they're not getting rid of their police. So we need to separate. We need to have our own land, our own space, you know, and push for this Republic of New Africa. I think that's, you know, I mean, we're not respected as human beings here, man. You know, so how, you know, and the police, they came from the slave patrols, you know, that's where they were born out of. And that was just to keep us contained, to keep us down, and to keep killing us and beating us down. So you can't reform that, man. You know, that's how I feel about it. Okay. And as far as protection, you know, as far as protecting ourselves, I think that, you know, people, you know, need to, like, they're not going to stop killing us until they stop burying some of their own. You know, we see it every time. You know, we see it with that brother, Michael Alexander, that when he was up in Texas, and he killed 3 of them. And then the other brother down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, he killed 3 of them. And then they came out and they want to have a press conference and say, oh, but it's not all cops. You know, that's the only time they stop. They had that press conference to say, oh, it's not all cops, there's a few bad apples, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't stop until some of them were getting fired on. And that's what it takes, man. If that's what it takes, they call it. They bring it down on themselves. You know, people need to protect themselves. You know, everybody's got a right to breathe. You know, once we're born here, everybody has the same right as anybody else, man. Not to be terrorized, not to be worried about going out the house, you being killed by a cop. You know, people need to protect themselves. You know? And Harry Blast first.
Yeah, I had moderator Noah. I did have a question relevant to what Mr. Teray said to Mr. Downey. The issues around harmless error, the issues around ambiguities of reasonableness and probable cause have provided cover, camouflage for police homicide. And also in terms of circular thinking or pretextual thinking, in terms of the level or benefit of doubt of law enforcement that is closed. As we see within the Andrew Brown case, oftentimes these things become very, very ambiguous in terms of what is reasonable. And it's very fluid in terms of pinning people down. Now, even with, and I'll conclude with this, even when we talk about medical neglect, there seems to be a high level of ambiguities around medical neglect and the outs of harmless error or even trying to substantiate what is intent. And I say that in the context of what Mr. Teray said. So if these things are in fact are you climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro, Mr. Downing?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm climbing the
Before we get to
mountain.
that question, Ken, I just want to give Jalil a chance to answer
Yes,
the
thank
first
you.
question,
Yes.
and then we'll get to you to try to answer that one. And Brother Abu, you didn't say who you were. You just came on. Who are you?
I'm up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I dealt with Val, Stepfu, and many others. I went to the first Jericho in '98 and what have you. But I also feel that there's some issues around what Mr. Ray said in terms of Jericho. What happened was I felt the issue of autonomy and the placing, the centering of the new African prisoners was dissipated over the years.
Okay. Jalil.
I'm eating. What was that?
Oh. Well, while you're eating, let me just throw something in before I get back to King to answer the brother's question.
All right.
Daruba had mentioned earlier about decentralization and community control over the pigs.
Yep.
And, that's something that we actually had looked at back as far as 68, 69.
Right.
The Panther Party. And, we took it up a step. Unfortunately, most folks didn't want to get involved. They said that they didn't want to vote because we had a voter campaign, still do. King was part of it. A lot of us are part of that. We could actually change the city charter in New York City to make it mandatory residency for any cop that works in your neighborhood. It's got to live there. That way they have a vested interest in what goes on in the community. They go to the same stores, houses of worship. Their children go to the same schools. They're part of the community. And if, I always use this analogy. Let me just, real quick, Jalil, chew that food. It's, you vote for your precinct commander, so you don't get transferred some other pig who came from somewhere else. You vote for a panel or a formation that provides oversight in your community, and they have to live there. You vote for independent prosecutors that has nothing to do with the city or anything else, that's voted in the by the community, that has the power to subpoena and bring up charges, who also lives in the community. And so you put all these things together along with elected review board, and you control the community. This isn't a solution to police terror because we're only talking about controlling our own neighborhoods. I mean, once you go out of the neighborhood, you're going to be a target. But at least it's a start for people to understand that they can control the institutions in their own community, whether it be the pigs or education, sanitation, housing, whatever it might be. So we can do that on a local level if we organize ourselves and stop looking at it as, I don't vote, I don't want to be part of the system. No, you can control your own community. And so that's something we always talked about and something that we can still be done across this country. So I just want to throw that out there. And decentralizing it definitely will be, folks that don't want to live in the community, they can go and watch the buildings downtown. There's 51 council districts in New York. And if 30 of them that are in Bed-Stuy or the Bronx or, any other areas where we are want to have community control, they can vote for that. Park Avenue, they can keep things the way they are. Brother Jalil.
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely correct. And also what Kaji raised the issues of creating autonomy. We have to build towards autonomous regions. The problem that we have in regards to our struggle is that it's both class and national, right? We have the national issue in regards to racism, is white supremacy, right? In terms of the whites believing that Black people and people of color are to be oppressed and repressed, right? So that's part of the struggle. The other part of the struggle within our own neo-colony, and that is the part of our class struggle, right? And so even if we, for example, we have Black police officers patrolling the Black community, if their class values is that of the white folks, if their class values is that of the bourgeoisie, then their actions and their attitudes will be that of the same, right? We know that during the course of slavery and chattel slavery, there was black folks who was supporting the master. You see what I'm saying? And so we have the same thing going on today, right? Whether consciously or unconsciously. That's usually what I talk about freeing our mind, right? And so we have to be able to build alternative institutions, as I mentioned before, for the purpose of empowering our own people, right? That do believe that we in fact can have power, that we can control power. We talk about in Black Panther Party, we talk about power to the people. What does that actually mean? That means to control your communities, right? Control all the resources and forces inside your community. That's power to the people, right? And so if we have to use electoral politics in order to go, then we do that. If we have to use other extrajudicial means or extra legal means in order to win power, as Kaji alluded to, then we need to do that. The Black Panther Party with Richard Nixon was what? Black Panther Party for self-defense. So we have to defend ourselves. We defend our communities, and we have to be able to rise. So I have the courage and determination to do so. Again, Kaji made mention of the fact, or the building towards independence, right? I'm in favor of independence as well, right? I think this country is on the verge of becoming balkanized as what happened in Russia and Yugoslavia, right? There's 70 million people that voted for this asshole called Trump, all right? That means 70 million people can't tolerate the fact that black people is in this country, right? So what does that mean? That means that we need to get away from them damn people, all right? We need to figure out ways how to dissolve this kind of relationship that we have with these people, right? Because they're not for us. They don't want to live with us, right? Unfortunately for us, because of our trauma, right, as a former chattel slaves, because of our trauma and going through Black Jim Crow and other forms of second but unequal, right, conditions as civilians, allegedly under 14th Amendment, where a civilian was being a part of this nation was imposed upon us, where we never had the opportunity to have a plebiscite, meaning to either in 1867, when the 14th Amendment came into existence, to either have an opportunity to go back to Africa, develop our own independence, right, or become part of this country. Right, the 14th Amendment imposed citizenship on African people in this country. Right, we never had a choice in this matter. Now we have a choice. We can make a determination, right, on our own, right, as to whether or not we want to maintain this kind of racist relationship that we have with these people and with this government. Right. So in that instance, again, we begin the process by controlling our communities, creating autonomous regions, liberating ourselves on the basis of that, right? As Shep just mentioned. And by doing so, we empower ourselves. We begin to realize that we can, in fact, control the resources in our communities, right? That's part of our decolonization, decolonizing our mind, right? And liberating ourselves, what they call emancipation, emancipating ourselves, right? From the idea that we have to be dependent on massa, right, for our own survival. That's bullcrap. We do not have to depend on, we depend on ourselves for our own survival, right? The Black Panther Party had survival pro-dependent revolution, right? Survival pro-dependent revolution, right? Argument is now we need revolution to survive, okay? Survival pro-dependent revolution is a defensive posture. It's a defensive posture, right? Because you're trying to survive pending the revolution. What I'm saying, build the revolution to survive. That's offensively, right? So now we're moving in the offensive posture towards our own liberation and independence. And so that's the goals and objectives that I believe that we should be moving towards. As was explained during the course that Kaji put together for me, what was 6-week course, Kaji? 6-week course it was, right? 6 classes, yeah. And based upon my book, We're Own Liberators, right? Well, I'm teaching young people the prospects of liberation, right? How do we move towards liberation? And that book in and of itself is a manual, right? If you read it, it's a go-to, it's a how-to manual in terms of moving towards liberation and independence. We're talking about the development of decolonization programs, right? That's what we need to do, right? build revolution to survive. All right, that's the goal and objective.
Okay, before we go to another question, Noah King, can you answer that question? And I think we can probably go, see, it's 9:28. Let's go, can we go another 20 minutes, Spirit?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and again, this is being live streamed all over the planet, y'all. So this information is being sent out, so don't look at who's in the Zoom, because again, there's hundreds of people that's paying attention on YouTube. Go ahead, King.
Shep, sir, I had an amendment for Mr. Downing. That amendment is that it appears to be that defund the police is coming out of a counterinsurgency process of non-profit industrial complex. Given what we've seen with the Knapp Commission in New York City, the Mullen Commission, the Christopher Commission in LA, Philadelphia, and Chicago, and the advent in the 80s of police citizens review boards and input of community police, but it has been unsurceased. Now, and what I'm saying in conclusion is that it appears that there is an incestuous relationship between law enforcement, organized crime, racketeering, and the illegal drug trade. Now, it is evident from the 70s on down that this has been documented well. So in the view of defund or do this, in the backdrop of if they in fact are racketeers in a surreptitious manner, what is the appropriate response? In addition to what Mr. Teray had mentioned in terms of these legal hoops and loops I had mentioned earlier.
All right, King. Being a lawyer, I guess you gotta pull all that together to answer the question.
Well, I have to thank Abu for coming back, because in the beginning I was just on a roll with him and I was just with it, and all of a sudden he turned it back to me. He said, "Mr. Downing." So I'm glad you cleared that up, because I had no idea it was coming back to me. But the only thing that it changes is that it just underscores our need to understand our history. Those of us who have been doing this fight know that all those institutions are connected. J. Edgar Hoover worked very closely with organized crime. Organized crime was involved in the murder of providing plausible deniability to intelligence's assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So we're aware of all that, and that the importation of drugs, and the book to read is The Politics of Heroin. The Politics of Heroin by Alfred McCoy documents the importation of drugs into Black communities starting at the end of World War II, and not simply with the Contra War. And so we realized that all of these institutions have served working together to maintain profits at our expense, bringing the drugs to us, and then launching a war on drugs against us to incarcerate us. So it's very tidy. So what we have to do is understand that history, and every time we make any kind of connections around dealing with policing, we point out that all of these elements are actually working together to try to eliminate us. The war on gangs is the war on our street organizations, not the war on corporate gangs. When they set up the drug programs that went into South America, and read The Big White Lie, the U.S. was working with governments to eliminate the drug dealers in those countries who were not the government drug dealers. So they sent the helicopters in so that the governments could attack the non-government drug dealers, and then the U.S. allowed those governments to import the drugs in. So I'll leave it at that. And if anybody wants any more of those,
but I think we, Mr. Bowler, I'm gonna make it real short, 10 seconds. Harmless error, intent, medical neglect, and probable cause are extremely ambiguous. So when we talk about political prisoners and medical neglect and other things that you just elucidated, how do we prove intent if it is very ambiguous? And then we have exigent circumstances, and we have harm. They are allowed to make certain errors with even in the process of medical neglect. So these outs and loopholes seem to be not merely stumbling blocks, but severe impediments. Could you speak to that real brief?
I just need one sentence, really. And it's the African saying, in the court of chickens, the roach never gets justice. And that's what happened. I mean, these terms will be used against us until we build a movement that gets behind lawyers. I mean, I didn't become a lawyer until I wanted to use it to be a better organizer, not that I thought that I could go run into court and save the day. And so those terms' meanings change when the movements go forward, just like intent to commit murder has changed in the Chauvin case because of the movement. So harmless error will change when the movement forces the courts to recognize it. And it just goes right back to what we've all been talking about here, which is to organize.
Okay.
Can I add something? Chef, can I add something to that, please?
Yeah, and then Noah, give us another question after Jalil. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, brother Abu. Listen, I understand some of the
yes, sir.
The issues some of the issues that you are raising, right? One of the things we have to concern ourselves in terms of linguistics, right, and how rhetoric serves to confuse the issues at times, right? And so, in this instance, what the broader question that you're trying to talk about, I think you're trying to talk about, is the question of genocides, right? And if you understand the principle of genocide, they've been committing genocides against us and Black folks, and using this kind of language to ambiguous, right? Our dying is not ambiguous, brother, right? Our hunger is not ambiguous. Our homelessness is not ambiguous. A medical neglect and killing of our people is not ambiguous. It's happening, all right? So let's not get confused with these ambiguous terms, right? And use those terms as ways to confuse our issues that we're dealing with. And that's the reason why we're raising this question on October 22nd and 24th, right? To the international community. We're once again charging the issues of genocide, right? And we bring the whole issue, not just parts of it, the whole issue of what we've been confronting in this country for the last 400 and something years. And so let's not get caught up in these little words, right, that they use against us to confuse us, right, in terms of our struggle, right? The reality is that collectively, we've been undergoing systemic genocides, all right? And so that's nothing ambiguous about that, all right? And so let's be clear on that. And the question of genocide is in whole or in part, right? They don't mean they just wipe you out, right? They can prevent your reproduction, right? They can prevent you from striving and being prosperous, right? As a people or as a nation. And that's what they've been doing to us for the last 400 something years. So let's get that understanding very, very clear, bro. I can appreciate your question and where you're trying to, where you have, that's right, where you have raised these concerns on how the court of law has been used to manipulate our condition and our situation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I know you're talking about. I got you, bro. Right. But the reality of the fact is that inside and outside the court of law, right, the totality of the situation is the one of genocide, right? That we have undergone a fight against white supremacy in a white supremacist country, right? And that's the reality of it.
Okay, Sister Noah, let's get 3 more questions, and that's it. Then we gotta close. Go ahead.
Okay. Can anyone speak on the importance of being in community with elders instead of copying and pasting without reference point?
While they're giving their thoughts, let me just throw this out. Okay, Jalil talked about survival programs, but the effect of having those programs was profound in terms of our relationship to the community. One of the problems with movements like the Black Lives Movement, and before that, that fraudulent New Black Panther movement, and all these other, things that came out, they were not in the community. They didn't have an office that people could go to voice their concerns and problems. They did not have programs in the community. They just were basically running in front of a camera. And so, we talk about, and my comrades can talk about this, who went underground. The community protected us. They made sure that Asada never got captured. They made sure that the underground was protected. And so if a grandma was approached by a pig and said, do you know this person? Did you see this person? She could easily say, nah, I ain't never heard of that, knowing that her children and grandchildren were fed by the Black Panther Party. And so the community supported us because we supported the community. And so that's important. You talk about elders, that's what's so important. And we need to get Project Safe back, Seniors Against a Fearful Environment. Get all those things back in the community. And young people ask, what can we do? Start out with the elders and the seniors. If we don't protect our elders, what's going to happen when we get old? And we all hopefully will get old. So I'm pass that on to the comrades. Go ahead, Kazi.
Yes.
Kazi, you're on mute. Okay.
Okay, I'm not speaking on that question. I just want to say this, man. You know, it's been 155 years since Reconstruction ended, you know, and slavery 11 years before that. And this experiment, this social experiment that they got us involved in, I don't understand why we even talking about, I mean, trying to like continue to live with this, man. It's been 155 years since the shit ended. They're still killing us. Why are we still talking about reforming this shit? We need to get away from these people, man. It ain't nothing changing. They have plenty of time if they wanted to, like, you know, open their arms and live with us as brothers and sisters. They have plenty of time. What? What am I missing? Why are we still doing this? Still talking about these cops in our community? Why? That's my question. Why are we still talking about trying to fit in?
Brother Jalil, before you respond, I just want to say, I know back in the day, our contradiction with RNA was that we felt that you could not have a nation right next to the United States, that the U.S. had to be totally, absolutely eliminated. And so, you know, I still believe in that. They got their tentacles all over the world. They got to go. You know, otherwise we're going to be neo-colonialized. Even if we had an RNA, it would be affected by them. So they got to go. Go ahead, Jalil.
Okay. That's nice, Shep. I like the way you put that. The contradiction we have with Black Panther Party was and RNA. RNA came into existence in 1968 in Detroit by 500 revolutionary nationalists. All right, and that happened in Aretha Franklin's. Some of y'all know Aretha Franklin's father's church, and Reverend Franklin's church. But they had that meeting. Now, the contradiction between the Black Panther Party and RNA was that the Black Panther Party believed that there had to be a choice made by Black people as to determine whether or not they want to, in fact, separate, right? Or whether they want to engage in a struggle for a socialist America or some other choice. And so the Black Panther Party raised the question of a plebiscite vote prior to any formation of independence. Whereas the revolutionary nationalists, particularly the RNA, they decided, hey, we're tired. We separate. We're gonna build what we call the Black Belt South, right? Then the inherited homeland of Black people in this country. All right, and so that was a distinction between the two in regards to a strategy in which we can inculcate within Black people decision-making processes from which we're going to determine our future on the basis of that. Now, again, in regard to the survival programs, pending the revolution, indeed, they are the ones that brought the relationship between the Black Panther Party and the community together, right? We serve the people, right? And the people, in essence, protect the organization, serves them. And it brought that kind of a symbiotic relationship between the two, which is extremely important. And also, I'm not denying that the survival program had value, right, in terms of building a relationship between the people and the organization. We had the party line and you have a mass line, right? And we built on development of that. However, as we evolve in school and learn lessons from those days, because remember the Black Panther Party at the time was a youth organization, at the onset of the Black Panther Party was no one older than 30 years old, right? It was a young group, a young organization, run for the most part by young people. And so there were some learning things that we have to grow into as part of the process. And I think one of the lessons is that rather than, in as much as we build a relationship with the community by serving people, right, we also put forth the idea that this serving other people ideologically is one of building the revolution, right? Not pending the revolution, but building the revolution. And so in this instance, and I'm thinking in our capacity to grow and evolve, what we're doing is building decolonization programs, right? Programs that decolonize ourselves from our dependence upon the system, and more so dependent upon ourselves and our own organizational development. And so that is a distinction, a very distinctive point that has to be made in regards to what is happening then and what we're trying to achieve today, right? Our golden objective now is building power, right? And we should say that. We should not be afraid of saying that we want power, okay? And we say that out loud. We want power, okay? We want the power to control our own destiny, right? And not have it controlled by others who don't have our best interests at heart, okay? And so that is the goal and objective. And the process by which we do so, in my thinking, is revolutionary, right? And remember now, in my defining revolution, you take the R off of revolution, which you have evolution, right? And so we know that human beings evolve from one state of development to the next, from a quantitative state of development to a qualitative state of development. So by identifying yourself as a revolutionary, you are actually one who's engaged in social revolution, social evolution of the human spirit, of our own humanity. And the process by which we do so, this evolutionary process, we define it as being revolutionary, right? And so that is the process for which we're moving forward. And so there's nothing wrong in identifying yourself as being a revolutionary if you understand the context from which you are moving people or humanity from one level of development to a higher level of development, right? From a quantitative state to a qualitative state in our own understanding, in our own humanity, right? And in this instance, we understand that our humanity our growth in humanity has to be based upon our separation from the white supremacists, right? My argument is this here: white people, white supremacists, you can go about your business. You be as much white supremacist you want to be, right? I don't give a damn about you being a white supremacist. It's when you try to impose your white supremacy upon me, we got a problem, all right? So now you're denigrating me and you're making me less than, and we're not having that. Let me make one other point, if I may. The issues of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not revolutionary. Let me make that point explicitly clear. Black Lives Matter is a social consciousness movement, right? And I equate it very much to the Steve Biko Black Consciousness movement back in South Africa. But the distinction between Steve Biko's Black Consciousness movement in South Africa is that in South Africa, there was also a revolutionary movement that was going on at the same time. All right? So we have that revolutionary movement going on at a particular time that would move the idea of social consciousness into a revolutionary paradigm, a revolutionary model of struggle. Right? We're not there yet. So the Black Lives Matter trend, Black Lives Matter tendency, right, is no less than that of the Civil Rights Movement. Right? The Civil Rights Movement was a social consciousness movement, raising people's moral consciousness from one understanding that this idea of a separation and this idea of segregation was morally incorrect. That was the argument of Dr. King. All right. And very similarly, social, the Black Lives Matter is one that's saying that you're denigrating and denial of the value of Black people is an issue that white people has to address, right? But our appealing to white people saying that, hey, Black Lives Matter, it may raise another question. And that question is this here. Why do we have to even ask that question in the first place, right? Why does we have to even have the idea that Black Lives Matter, right? We know Black Lives Matter, right? The only problem who don't believe Black Lives Matter is white people, right? The white supremacists. You see what I'm saying? So the idea that we have to even raise that kind of question leads to the moral degradation, right? Deficit of white folks. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to understand that it's a social conscious movement to make white people understand that black people have value. That's all. It's not revolutionary. And so we need to build a revolutionary movement. A revolutionary movement is based upon our own empowerment as a people, right? Developing our own institutions in our community that is controlled and regulated by our own.
Okay, Harmony, we got 2 more questions. Just want to say,
Yes.
Brother Frank was unable to get through. He did text me, but we doing some work out in Queensbridge projects, which he proudly says the largest housing development in New York City. But we've been out there dealing with our political prisoners, and gonna be out there on Wednesdays. So they feed people just like we do in East Harlem at the People's Church, and you know that's the real crust of survival programs, is that you use those not just to respond to the needs of the people, but also to raise the consciousness of the people while you're doing it. So that's something that's important in terms of how we're going to teach revolution and move to our liberation. So 2 more questions, and we're going to end with just a quick 2-minute or 3-minute sum up from Brother Kazi and Jalil after these 2 questions, so we can end at, I guess, 10 on the dot. We've gone over, but this has been a great 3 hours. And for those who don't know, we used to have meetings back in the day that were 4 and 5 hours, beating each other over the head to organize. So this is a little thing. Last 2 questions, Sister Noah.
Okay, so we have a question for Brother Jalil. How has it been working to face with organizers and activists on the outside? So much revolutionary love to you. And that's from a Lou D 2021.
Thank you, Lou D. I got love for you too, sis. I got love for all the people, period. Right? Put an exclamation mark on that. Right? Love for the people. Let me make this exceedingly clear. It's better organizing out here than organizing inside penitentiary. Okay. Out here, matter of fact, my mom is upstairs right now. 86-year-old my mother still slapped me in the back of my head and tell me, boy, be quiet. Okay, you need them. That's a wonderful thing. To have that kind of love and spirit for my family. And being out here, being able to enjoy the type of movement that I'm able to have outside of gun towers and razor wires, right? And on the count, and making you strip when you don't want to, and all those type of indignations that you suffer inside prison system that Maroon was talking about. Now, I've gone through the same similar situation as Maroon has suffered over his 40-something years in prison. And so it's exceedingly pleasurable to be out here to continue to engage and be part of building a resurgence of a movement. I have a job working with the organization called Citizen Action of New York, and they are engaged in the power politics and developing programs inside New York State for the purpose of trying to change the laws and the legislation in New York State. They recently had a couple of bills passed. One was stopping solitary confinement in New York State prison system that they were joined in support of. Another one is that they supported was, I don't indulge, but marijuana laws. Getting marijuana laws changed in New York State. Personally, what I'm doing now is trying to halt the school to prison pipeline. That's my goal and objectives. We got to save these babies from going to the penitentiary, right? And so we got to figure out ways how to do so. So we need to develop a new paradigm in teaching. And my argument is this here, that these schools that are embedded in our communities, they need to become that village that African proverb says that it takes a village to raise a child, right? We need to have every resources that a child needs in order to survive and be prosperous in those school buildings. So we need to figure out new ways of educating our children and ensuring that they're being taught the way they need to. Here in Rochester, where I'm now residing, Rochester school system is the third worst school system in the country. In the country, third worst, right? And we have a school system that's primarily Black and brown people, right? But the teaching staff is primarily 80% of the teaching staff is white women, right? White women who don't live in the community. That's a disconnect, serious disconnect, all right? And so we have a problem in trying to resolve that matter and try to save some of these kids from two things: one, Black on Black crime, and also being killed by the police and being sent to the penitentiary. So that's one of the goals: save the babies. We need to figure out ways how to, essentially, how to control these buildings that our kids are in for 8 hours a day, right? For 8-hour days and being miseducated, right? We got to take control of these school buildings so that we have control of our kids' minds and move them forward in regards to their own future. Because our children are our future, right? And so that's part of the process. And one of the things that I'm developing, working with in terms of my in the community, and naturally continue to fight for the release of our political prisoners, right, in all capacity that I possibly can. So I thank you for that question, sis. It is good to be out here, and I wish that more of my comrades was out here and enjoying fighting a good fight from this side of the wall rather than that side of the wall.
Okay.
Last question.
Yes. So our last question, and Baba Shep mentioned this briefly. Queenbridge is the largest projects in the U.S. How can we promote its importance in this work to free political prisoners?
Go ahead, Kazi, you can start off. You on mute, bro.
Okay, sorry. What I was saying is I don't really, Queensbridge, I don't live in New York, but I agree with what Jaleel was saying, you know, as far as organizing. October 1st, I'll be out 30 years, you know, this October 1st. And I've worked on anti-death penalty. I worked on, you know, school to prison pipeline. I worked on, you know, isolation. We started isolation to get people out of isolation, to build safer communities. Started all these different campaigns, you know. And I think there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me. And we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have social scientists. We have enough people to run our own, to do our own nation. You know, all we can do is continue to organize and continue to connect with other groups and other people that's doing the same, like-minded people, and spin our webs and continue to build, man. You know, it's been, you know, it's been a long time, and I just feel like, you know, there's enough smart people to be able to see where we're at, and, you know, the millionaires we have, the billionaires we have, you know, build our own. All right. Self-determination.
Okay. Right on, bro. Okay, we're gonna do our sum ups now. I want to start out with because we didn't really get a clear identification on Northeast Coalition. Sister Val, you're here still, hanging in there. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing? And then I'm going to go to King to sum up, Noah Harmony to sum up, maybe give us a quick thing on Maroon, and then, of course, Kazi and Jalil, and then we're going to end. So, Sister Val. Yeah, I know I put you on the spot. All right, look how she's getting herself together because I did do that. I'm known to do that. Brother King.
Very quickly, thanks for putting this together. I hope that people spread the word and let people go to this recording because there's a lot here, a lot of important information. I would just end with Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael said, we are past the time for description. The time is now for prescription. Stop talking about it. We got enough information to act, so let's act. And on the most fundamental level, somebody talked about getting out in the streets, doing some police patrols. We need to pick up Cop Watch. Cop Watch is anybody with a camera now. You see all of this justice we're starting to get because people who were not organizing Cop Watch stepped up and did it. So when you see something, shoot something. Okay, hold your camera up. Also teach people what their rights are. The resistance stops when the cops pull up, and a lot of them back off when people start saying, no, I don't consent to a search. Am I free to go? That could end a lot of these situations. So we want to prepare people for that. And I'll leave it. And then also study COINTELPRO and learn the lessons for your own organizing.
Okay, King. And for folks who don't know, we do actually a 14-week training, which is more than just know your rights, but it's how to exercise your rights.
Right.
And how to control your community. So it's 14 weeks long. Start out at 7, but because they change, we have to adapt and we change. Sister Noah.
Okay, thank you all so much for coming out tonight and for joining us for this event. Just some brief updates on Maroon. If we all would like to keep him in high consciousness vibration. Our day on Sunday was a very beautiful day, and our sister Etta had a virtual conference call with him, and she shared the picture, and he was all smiles and high vibes. So those du'as, our prayers, all of those things are reaching forward to him. So let us just be reminded of that. We're still in the month of Ramadan, alhamdulillah for that. So if you all would like to join us in solidarity and fast during these days from sun up to sundown, which is a dry fast that will be beneficial. We believe that our prayers and our du'as and our commitments and our charity is for God, and they'll be answered at the best. They're answered during this month, during this holy month of Ramadan. So let us be reminded of that. And just for all of the information and the things that were given tonight, one thing that I can say, just as a activist and as a niece of and a daughter of and all of those different things, and being here summoned by my ancestors to carry on these different things, I would like to also say this, that we have to remember to self-empower, to then be inspired to be empowered by all of this information that was given today. It's our divine responsibility to self-preserve, to self-identify. And if we have others that are creating these narratives, how is it that we see ourselves today in this present world and living onward for the future? So let us be reminded of self-empowerment, because that's truly how it is that we can gather our communities together and take hold to our communities. It's self-love.
Right on. Sister Val, you there? Okay, Brother Kazi.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for putting this together and continuing to do the work that we all got to do. And I want to encourage.
You're muted again, bro.
Man, this technology, man. Anyways, I want to encourage everybody to continue to build and continue to reach out to each other, man, and build these groups and be like Jaleel was saying, and King Downey was saying that we mobilize ourselves and learn from the history and continue to build. We need to swell up our ranks. I mean, we need to be, nationally and internationally, and we need to start connecting some of these people that got money, that class, breaking down that class thing, what Jaleel was talking about, because there's a lot of people that could help us create more. I mean, you know, it's like we don't get any respect as human beings a lot of times because we don't control anything. We don't have anything. And that's why it's so important, I feel, that we have that Republic of New Africa. Because I don't think after we have that and develop that and are standing on our own and self-determination and have our own army, have our own soldiers, our own Marines, our own Navy, then we'll have our respect as human beings. You know what I mean? And then maybe we could overthrow the United States government and have that revolution, you know? I mean, I agree with you, Jaleel, too, that, you know, it has to be a revolution. You know, but until we have the revolution, maybe we could have our own independence, our own independent nation within the nation. Because we've been one ever since they brought us here. We've been a nation within a nation, separate and unequal. So let's get some equality. All power to the people.
Right on, brother. Val, you there yet? All right, I'm about to put you on after Jaleel. Go ahead, my brother. Closing remarks, Jaleel.
Let me say, alhamdulillah. Shep, this is a wonderful program you put together for our comrade and our beloved brother, Maroon. Let's always keep the focus that this purpose for us being here was for Maroon. And so we need to do everything we possibly can for him. Our sister Nora, she made a very astute observation or self-love. Sister Sophia Bukhari wrote a book called The War Before. If no one ever heard of or seen it, they need to get that book, The War Before, because one thing that she explicitly made mention of in that book was the need for revolutionaries to take time for themselves, right? To take time for healing. So this is a traumatic experience. Us being in this country, we have suffered so much trauma, it's ridiculous. It is crazy. And so it's always important for us to take the time for self-healing and for self-love. That's the only way we can preserve ourselves to continue to fight, to continue to move forward. So that's very important message that the sister gave to us. And the other thing is this here, and I'm saying this to everyone, right? Whether you're a believer or non-believer, right? Believe in your higher self, right? Believe in that God spirit, right? Believe in the idea that we can, in fact, be better people, be better human beings, that we are, in fact, vicegerents of this planet. We own this planet. This planet belongs to all of us, right? Collectively, right? And in terms of our own humanity. And we need to build on the basis of that. And if we can understand that, then we know that we can, in fact, be empower ourselves by the spirit of knowing that we are all liberators, right? We're all liberators in our own right. And with that, I'm again say alhamdulillah to Brother Shep and to all y'all who attended this program. That in itself speaks volumes in terms of who you are, right, as a human being on this planet. That you are concerned and you are interested in your own self-preservation and your own survival as a people. And so I salute you, right, for being here tonight.
Okay, before I close, I just want to acknowledge Brother Spirit Child, who's been holding down the text here. And I just want him to chime in and give a closing remark. And that's my Zulu brother. You know, we're all part of Universal Zulu Nation. We are following what Emery said, you know, use culture as a weapon. And, you know, Sister Mama C in Tanzania is a Zulu queen. Brother Smitty, may he rest in peace and power, was also a Zulu king who joined with myself to reach that thing. And of course, Brother Tariq is also part of Zulu Nation. So hip hop is a weapon that we can utilize worldwide. And actually they're doing more of it across this planet other than where it started at here. But our objective is to use that culture as a weapon. Brother Spirit Child, could you just close us out?
Yeah, right on. Thank you so much, everyone, for this dynamic program. We are going to be sharing this continuously. Our power is in the culture, and it is very obvious that we have a lot of work to do. I definitely appreciate you, Kazi, for the strong encouragement of where our generation needs to be, not only creating songs and musics, but also doing what we can do to reignite the imagination of liberation, especially for our comrades behind the prison walls, and do what we did for Asada and other ways, you know what I'm saying, for all of our people. So thank you for that fire. Thank you all for that fire. Thank you all for that spirit and that peace and tranquility. I do believe that we need a balance, the communication with our ancestors, our veterans, the culture, our youth, our young ones, 3 and 5 years old, have been listening in. I can't say thank you enough. Thank you enough. And we're here to support and do whatever we need to do. Anytime you need us, we riding. And I'm going to continue to do the boards and to try to make this revolution look sexy and do what we got to do. All right. All power to the people. Pa'lante siempre, siempre pa'lante.
Right on. What's the call?
Free them all.
That ain't it. What's the call?
Free them all.
All right. Now, when everybody unmutes, so we can get it really right for all the other folks that's listening.
Yeah.
All right. We waiting.
Free them all.
Unmute. What's the call?
Free them all.
Right on. So we'll be seeing you on the whirlwind, and let's pass the word and get this out. And I hope to see you folks on Sunday. When we
Right
go
on.
to the stinking governor's house. All power to the
Right
people.
on, man.
All power to
Surround the boy's house, man.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.
And Daruba will be back here. He said in June, so we're gonna definitely get his butt
Peace,
back
sister.
on.
It's good. It's good meeting you, sister. Good seeing you,
brother
King.
Kazi. Yes.
Good seeing you,
Good.
King
Put
Downey
that Gil
again.
Scott Heron on, man.
Beatrix Saída.
We fighting for space, fuck the fame and glory. The truth will be chased on unmarked territory. I'm here to tell you more than just a story. And I promise, it ain't boring. We here to stay, so look the other way. I'm here to stay, so look the other way. Or in my eyes, they cast the lies of our lives and our history. Oppression kills, ain't no mystery, but united there are victory. But united there are victory. But united there are victories. They tried to erase moments, souls and stories. Shall not be mandatory. Seek justice and peace for those underneath, for those in defeat, for those on the street with nothing to eat. You gotta believe, you gotta believe. Say I won't retreat until I receive. Say we won't retreat until we receive. Yeah, we will proceed. Maroon will proceed. Yeah, we will proceed. Maroon will be free. Maroon will be free. We fighting for space, fuck the fame and glory. The truth will be chased through unmarked territory. I'm here to tell you more than just a story. And I promise, it ain't boring. We here to stay, so look the other way. I'm here to stay, so look the other way. Or in my eyes, they'll cast the lies of our lives and our history. Oppression kills, united, there are victories. But united, there are victories. But united, there are victories. But united, there are victories. So look the other way, or look me in my face, or look me in my face. I dare you, I dare you. Say I won't retreat until I receive. Say we won't retreat until we receive. Yeah, we will proceed. Maroon will proceed. Yeah, we will proceed. Maroon will be free. Maroon will be free.
Peace.
Valerie came back, so if you want to say something, Valerie, about the Northeast Political Prisoner Alliance, we got you.
Oh no, I didn't want to say anything, but I got a text from Frank, and he told me that Shep asked me to speak, but so I jumped back on. I was on the phone call.
Well, it's up to you. We actually we done, but if you just want to throw something out before we shut down.
Oh well, the NEPPC, we just here to support our elders, and we do that via education and just supporting people's particular freedom campaigns. So we supporting Sundala's campaign. Of course, we support Maroons and Matulus and everybody else who's still in prison, and we're gonna do that until they all come home.
Right on. So, folks,
right on. Free them all.
All right, just go to that tree we got, and you can get involved. Peace.
All right.
More power to people. Free them all.
Peace, Kazi. Peace, Chuck.
Peace,
Thank
peace.
you.
I hope I can make it there. I hope I can make it back Sunday, man. I'm in Boston, but
Yeah, we
All power to
scrambling
the
to get
people.
rides now in New York, so hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Yeah,
All right,
Chef, I
y'all.
can't be there. I told you I got a death in my family, so I ain't gonna be around.
All right.
Oh man, I'm sorry, sister.
Thank you. I'll be there in spirit, though.
All right,
My
keep your head up.
condolences.
They with you. Whoever that was, they with you all the
Thanks,
time.
Kazi.
For real.
Peace.
All right, on the
Peace.
move. Peace, always.
For you, Shep. If he's still there, he probably left.
trapped by fear. I'm in a box. I've got no place to go. If I follow my mind, I know I slaughter my own. Help me, I'm the prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? I need somebody, yeah, to listen to me. I beg you, brothers and sisters, I'm counting on you, yeah. Black babies in the womb, shackled and bound, chained by the caveman who keeps beauty down. Smacked on the ass when they're squalling and wet. Heir to a spineless man who never forgets, never forgets that he's a prisoner. Can't you hear my plea? 'Cause I need somebody, Lord knows, to listen to me. I'm a stranger to my son who wonders why his daddy runs, yeah. give a damn. Can't nobody see just who in hell I am. Hemmed in by a suit, yes, or choked up in a tie. Ain't no wonder sometimes this morning I hear my woman cry. She knows her man is a prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? Yeah, 'cause I need somebody, whoa, to listen to me.